Okay. We are reading Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balko. The in the portion that I'm reading, which covers the 2000s, a whole new war. One of the things I do when excuse me, let me do this say this too, while it's on my mind like this. One of the things that I do like about what I've read so far about Radley Balko is from these excerpts is I like the manner in which he's showing how far off the mindset of the police department is starting to go to, and how the lack of the challenging of their mindset going this far. Like, I think that's the other thing that is so crazy to me is that even as we read all of these things, there's such a lack of challenging the mindset of these police officers and of this police department. And I like that one of the things, excuse me, I like that that's something that he's picking different politicians and using quotes, and other authors have done that also. But and to me, again, that's where we get to the place of the societal, the mindset of the society, and the beliefs of the society and the thought patterns of the society. And so uh, as the mindset of the police department has got more militarized, and they started thinking more like an army and thinking more like soldiers, the politicians and the community started to view them more that way and started to accept the collateral damage that was building up, as you would for people in a war. These justifiable deaths that they were calling them. Malcolm X once said that when you call something what it is, a war, that it makes all the deaths that happen within it justifiable. And he wasn't saying that trying to condone people being killed because of war. He was saying that that's just, you got, there's a certain context that it was in. But so we're seeing that the police department's mindset is getting more militarized. The way that the society view them is more like a military and an army, and thus they are now having and being accepted to have the weaponry of a military and of an army, and thus the militarization of the police. On the Friday afternoon before the 2009 G20 summit was to begin in Pittsburgh at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, a reader in the city sent me a photo he snapped moments earlier. The photo was of a police officer. The photo was of a police officer standing in the middle of an intersection. He was wearing a military green top, camouflage pants, and combat boots. He had a gun strapped to his thigh and seemed odd. He had a gun strapped to his thigh and looked to be carrying another one. The camouflage in particular seemed odd, as it does whenever it's worn by a police officer in an urban area. It was unclear why this cop would have wanted to hide, and even if he did, how camouflage would help him do so in the city. There seemed to be little purpose for it other than to mimic the military. In any case, it was a sign of what was to come. This is how the country that gave the world the First Amendment now handles protest. Ooh. Oh, okay. He finna get in the bag. See this? He finna get in the bag. I'm happy. See this. He finna get in the bag. I can tell how he set that off. I was thinking as he was saying this. I'm thinking about Back the Blue. That's exactly what I was thinking about when he said that. This is how the country that gave the world the First Amendment now handles protest. There's a disquieting ease now with which authorities are willing to crush dissent. And at the very source of events where the right to dissent is the entire purpose of protecting free speech, that is, events where influential policymakers meet to make high-level decisions with far-reaching consequences. In fact, the more important the policymakers and the more consequential the decision they'll be making, the more likely it is that the police will use more force to keep protesters as far away as possible. As Norm Stamper said, this unfortunately was the lesson the country's law enforcement agencies took from the 1999 WTO protest in Seattle. A number of police departments from across the country had sent officers to Pittsburgh to help the police 2009 summit. A number of police departments from across the country had sent officers to Pittsburgh to help police the 2009 summit. The hell? Nearly all were dressed in similar paramilitary garb. In one widely circulated video from the summit, several police officers dressed entirely in camouflage emerged from an unmarked car, apprehended a young backpack-toting protester, stuffed him into the car, then drove off. It evoked the sort of disappearance you might envision happening in a Latin American country headed by a junta or one of the countries of the Soviet bloc. Matt Drudge linked to the video with the headline describing the officers in it as members of the military. They weren't, though it's certainly easy to understand how someone might make that mistake. Okay, so one of the things that I spoke about in the group conversation was how, let me go through and, while I talk, I just want people to know what I'm doing. I don't want y'all to think my mind is wandering. I'm in it. But one of the things that I have noticed throughout the listening of the book and the reading of the book and through things other people have told me about the portions that they've read in the book is that the handling of protest and the handling of demonstrations and the manner in which it is done is a commonality throughout the different chapters. And since the different chapters are about different time periods, that means that it is a commonality between these time periods that in each difference, and that's something that I'm just, I'm just, a lot of this is new information to me, and I like when a lot of these things connect. And so for me, this is the manner in which I can relate these things back to what it is that we doing, and I some of these books, like I said, this one I hadn't read, so I wasn't 100% sure, and there was moments in which I was, wondering, how much relevancy this may have. But I think that it's very important for us to notice how, again, a country that was birthed through protests and through demonstrations that purposefully went out of its way to have written into the inception of the country, into the ideals of the country, a lane for protest and demonstrations, to think about how ever since the country has been created and the government has been created, to think about how they have dealt with protest and demonstrations again lets you know the contradictions are being pointed out, the hypocrisies are being highlighted. We're highlighting the hypocrisies. I like that. Highlighting hypocrisies. That's what we're doing out here right now. We are highlighting hypocrisies. That's one of the things we need to be saying in 2021. One of the things when people ask what we protested for and why we protested and what we demonstrated for, tell them that we are highlighting hypocrisies. And that is one of the most glaring hypocrisies of this nation. And at some point, the nation is going to have to deal with these hypocrisies and these contradictions. But so to see him, to see how he's phrasing. Again, I'm just sharing this on my other social medias. To see how he's phrasing. And I know he's finna get into layering and talking more about basically political policing and protest policing. We can bring that right back. I think locking up our own, that probably was the only, aside of, it wasn't really much speaking of protesting and demonstrating because it was about a specific life lived. But in locking up our own, there was no mention, In locking up our own, there's no mention of protesting or anything like that. But however, here we are in Rise of the Warrior Cop, and protesting is a regular thing. And then this is why I took that step away. I'm happy I seen that again. I lost my thought a little bit. So this is, again, when we talk about cross-referencing this to what we are dealing with now, cross-referencing this to the issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis. We saw last year how people in different cities were being grabbed by police officers in regular clothes or in army-type clothes and being stuffed into unmarked cars. And we saw this recently happening. So, and I remember when I seen it happen and thinking like, oh, damn, they ain't never did no shit like this before, and like, again, this is, I like to make sure that I'm, people who may be just as far removed away from some of these concepts as I was, I want people to understand that I have also been far removed from some of these things and have had to learn and am continuing to learning and continuing to try to be fluid and to not be set into thinking that, I understand everything and I know everything. And this book has been a lot of learning a lot of new things. And so, again, this is, tactics being used at the G20 summit. Another video showed a police unit with a handcuffed protester. Officers surrounded the protester, propped him up, then posed with him while another officer snapped a trophy photo. YouTube later removed the video, citing a terms of use violation. It was later revealed that the police unit was from Chicago. They had taken vacation time to come to Pittsburgh to provide freelance security for the G20 summit. Okay, so this is okay, I just want to make sure we on the same page. So they're talking about the 2009 summit. The 2009 summit was when they threw the young man into the car in camouflage, and now we are on the G20 summit. Is that the same year? Is the same thing, same year? The G20 summit was the more recent. Every year? Okay. After the summit went, wait a minute, what year is this one? Yeah, because 2009, was it Twitter in 2009? Damn, it's hard to know. Yeah, I don't think so neither. Yeah, so it's got to be okay. As the summit went on, Twitter feeds and uploaded photos and videos claimed, and sometimes provided some evidence to prove, that police fired tear gas canisters in the dorm rooms, used sound cannons, and fired beanbags and rubber bullets. One man was arrested for posting the location of riot police to his Twitter feed. The charges were later dropped. That's a new one. Emily Tanner, a grad student at the University of Pittsburgh who described herself as a capitalist who didn't agree with the general philosophy of the anti-globalization protesters, covered the summit, the protest, and the fallout on her blog. The most egregious police actions seemed to take place on the Friday evening before the summit around the university, when police began ordering students who were in public spaces to disperse, despite the fact that they had broken no laws. Students who moved too slowly were arrested, as were students who were standing in front of the dormitories where they lived. A University of Pittsburgh spokesman later said that the tactic was to break up crowds that have the potential of disrupting normal activities, traffic flow, egress, and the like. Much of the arrest last night had to do with failure to disperse when ordered. Note that no one needed to have broken any actual laws to get arrested. The potential to break a law was more than enough. That standard was essentially a license for the police to arrest everyone, anywhere in the city, at any time, for any reason. Pennsylvania ACLU legal director Vic Wildcast said the problem was that police didn't bother to attempt to manage the protests. They simply suppressed them. I know about that. In the process, they rounded up not only innocent protesters, but innocent students who had nothing to do with protest at all. In all, 190 people were arrested. One of the arrestees was a reporter from the left-leaning organization Indie Media. When they apprehended her, the police took her camera. When they returned her camera, it was broken, and the police had deleted her photos and videos of the protest and police reaction. The police presence seemed to focus almost exclusively on peaceful demonstrators. Wildcat said, on Friday night, they didn't even have the excuse of property damage going on or any illegal activity. It's really inexplicable. So again, we all wanted to trace these things to issues that we are facing in Rockford, Illinois, and issues that we are dealing with, and we want to think about the interrelatedness to them. And so this is exactly how they are dealing. And we've watched, and another thing this book has done a good job of doing, in my opinion, is documenting the different handling of protest and the manner in which they've continued to be handled. And one of the things that I've said before is that the Back the Blue, and this, and again, this is still vantage points, and this is, I don't want to completely generalize, but I remember at May 30th, one of the things I would always feel like and say, and I still think it's true to an extent, is that part of the reason May 30th started to end up the way that it was because the crowd began to be blacker and the crowd began to be darker. And so that was the reason that they felt vindicated and justified and felt the liberty to assault and terrorize and batter and traumatize and victimize people outside of District 1. But as I'm reading in some of the, some of the origins of this country, when the makeup of the country of people who were free, at least, was not as diverse as it is now. And it was but primarily white people protesting and demonstrating over different things. You see that they were being treated like that too by their white fellow countrymen. You see that the government was still treating these men the same way. You know, they spoke about how people protesting near, where was it at? They spoke about how people protesting at the Capitol in one of these instances were shot at, you know, rushed with bayonets, you know, and so this country has regularly done this to try to suppress protest, and so I'm happy that that's been a constant speaking on protest and uprisings within here, because that is what our third week is about. And so all of these things, they all tie together. They all tie together. And inexplicable perhaps, but not inexcusable perhaps, but not inexplicable. Since Seattle, this has become the template. At the 2008 Republican National Convention in St. Paul, police conducted preemptory raids on the homes of protesters before the convention had even started. Police broke into the homes of people known to be activist rabble-rousers before they had any evidence of any actual crime. Journalists who inquired about the legitimacy of the raids and arrests made during the convention were also arrested. Damn, they wasn't playing no games. They arrested the journalists. In all, 672 people were put in handcuffs. The arrest of Democracy Now! Journalist Amy Goodman was captured on a widely viewed video. She was charged with conspiracy to riot. That charge against Goodman was later dropped. So were the charges against most of those others arrested. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reported the following February that charges were dropped or dismissed for 442 of the 672 people arrested. There were similar problems at the 2008 Democratic National Convention. Police in Denver showed up for the protest decked out in full riot gear. One particularly striking photo from Denver showed a sea of cops in shiny black armor, batons in hand, surrounding a small, vastly outnumbered group of protesters. The most volatile night of the convention featured one incident in which Jefferson County, Colorado deputies unknowingly clashed with and then pepper sprayed undercover Denver cops posing as violent protesters. The city later paid $200,000 to settle a lawsuit alleging that a Denver SWAT team was making indiscriminate arrests, rounding up protesters and bystanders alike. Perhaps the best insight into the mentality the police brought to the DNC protest could be found on the T-shirts the Denver Police Union had printed up for the event. The T-shirt showed a menacing cop holding a baton. The caption, DNC 2008, we get up early to beat the crowds. Police were spotted wearing similar shirts at the 2012 NATO Summit in Chicago. At the 1996 DNC Convention in Chicago, cops were seen wearing shirts that read, we kicked your father's ass in 1968, wait till you see what we do to you. Okay, so I just want to get back into, this is something that, again, you know, these are things that I didn't realize people hated protesters. That was like a shock to my system to realize, like, some of the, like, people really was speaking about protesters with, like, disgust or with some type of, like, negative connotation. And so to understand the manner in which police officers have viewed protesters and have treated protesters, and to think about the way in which the lack of, again, some of these things start to be about the moral integrity of people who have platforms. And since the people who have had platforms have not enough times had the moral integrity to call out these police officers for their tactics that they use on protesters, we have gotten to a place where protesting has been vilified. And as we go through it, again, we're reading Rise of the Warrior Cop. We're on day 7 of the ongoing teaching at Say Their Name Square. We're on book 6, though. We're starting to get into Star Wars territory with the numberings. But we'll finish this up and we will get to book 7. But I'm happy that there has been certain commonalities within this book. And one of them has been the manner in which protesters are treated and the mindset of police officers about protesting. So even just seeing this shirt that says, we kicked your father's ass in 1968, well till you see what we do to you. It lets you know that this is just like policing is generational. The ideology of policing and the thought pattern of policing is generational, and that extends to protesting. Protesting might as well, and they spoke about it in here in political policing. It's been treated as if it's drug dealing, or if it's and that's not to try to criminalize drug dealing. That is just as if to say the manner in which some of these things this is something that has been written into the law of the land. That is different than something that has been written out of the law of the land. It's one thing for something that people are trying to basically actively say that they're getting rid of or want to not be around. People speak and they don't want crime in their neighborhoods. That's something that they talk about. They don't want crime perpetuated onto them. But teachers are, protest union rights. Students protest school shootings. So this idea that these things are being allowed to happen to people who are exercising this right, and that it's being allowed to happen in such an openly fashion from an institution without anybody challenging it, is very disturbing, and it just speaks to the mindset of the society, I believe. And so I just think it's important that we think about these commonalities, and we and so that way we can also understand, what is to come, and how certain things will be treated. And so that way we aren't going into things with false assumptions. Don't be surprised if they arrest you for, walking on a crosswalk when you see that, they charged that batons for people that was protesting about trying to have slaves free. Of course, all right. This default militaristic response to protest of overkill was then given an extended national stage during the Occupy protest of 2011. Occupy gang shit. In the most infamous incident, now forever captured in countless internet memes and mashups, Lieutenant John Pike of the University of California, Davis campus police casually hosed down a peacefully group of protesters with a pepper spray canister. But that was far from the only incident. Police across the country met protesters in riot gear, once again anticipating, and in too many instances, seemingly even craving confrontation. In Oakland, the skull of Iraq War veteran Scott Olson was fractured by a tear gas canister that the police had fired into the crowd. In New York, NYPD officer Anthony Baloney pepper sprayed a group of his name Baloney. Pepper sprayed a group of helpless protesters who had been pinned in by police fencing. That city market. One thing the Occupy crackdowns did seem to do was focus renewed attention on police tactics and police militarization. Big picture stories about the Pentagon buildup, Department of Homeland Security, DHS, funding for anti-terror gear, and the proliferation of SWAT teams started streaming out of media outlets, giving the militarization issue the most coverage it had received since Kraska's studies came out in the late 1990s. Part of that was due to social media. The ubiquity of smartphones and the viral capacity of Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and blogs were already bringing unprecedented accountability to police misconduct and government oppression, be it a Baltimore cop screaming obscenities at a kid on a skateboard, a transit cop in Oakland shooting a man who lay handcuffed on his stomach. It's not written in here saying his name, but we don't say their name squared, so I'm going to say his name, Oscar Grant. Or government paramilitaries in Iran gunning down a young woman in cold blood during Arab Spring democracy protest. But the occupiers and I apologize, I don't know the name of the other two people involved in those incidents. But the occupiers, who tended to be young, white, and middle to upper middle class, knew social media like few other demographics. Oh, I don't like that line though. They knew how to live stream video direct. I don't like that. I don't like those insinuations. He need to listen to the Racial Injustice Week. They all had smartphones, so police couldn't suppress incriminating video by confiscating 1 or 2 or 10 phones. Someone was bound to have video of not only the original incident, but also of police trying to confiscate phones to cover it up. Okay, I want to say this. I like everything that he was saying, and all of it resonates very deeply to what we went through at City Market, and at Back the Blue and on May 30th, and what other people went through in 2020. But I do not agree with the occupiers who tended to be young, white, and middle to upper class, knew social media like few other demographics. Soldier Boy knows social media very well, and he is not, any of them demographics. It's multiple black people and black entrepreneurs, black musicians. Whether I agree with, they the things they stand for in their music or not, is regardless. Who know how to use the internet very well. So I think that that's a very horrible generalization at a very bad time. Very, got to take the temperature of the room. The political reaction to the Occupy crackdowns was interesting to watch. In the 1990s, it had been the right wing, particularly the far right, that was up in arms over police militarization. We call the outrage on the right over Waco, Ruby Ridge, and the raid to seize Elian Gonzalez. The left had largely either remained silent or even defended the government's tactics in those cases. See what go around, come around. But the right-wing diatribes, I shouldn't say that. I don't even really know those situations like that. But anyways, the right-wing diatribes against jackbooted thugs and federal stormtroopers all died down once the Clinton administration left office, and they were virtually non-existent after September 11, 2001. By the time cops started cracking heads at the Occupy protests, some conservatives were downright gleeful. The militarization of federal law enforcement certainly didn't stop, but the 9/11 attacks and a friendly administration seemed to quell the conservatives' concerns. So long as law enforcement was targeting hippie protesters, undocumented immigrants, suspected drug offenders, and alleged terrorist sympathizers, they were back to being heroes. Stephen Greenhut, a conservative-leaning columnist for the Orange County Register and editor of the investigative journalism site called Watchdog, was dismayed by the right's reaction. What's really disgusting is the natural instinct of so many conservatives to stick up for the police, Greenhut wrote. They don't like the Occupy protesters, so they willingly back brutality against them without considering the possibility that conservatives at some point might be on the receiving end of this aggression. That sort of gets us into the insurrection, but they ain't really get it like that. Unfortunately, consistent voices like Greenhut's have been rare. Partisan reaction to aggressive police actions against opponents tend to fall somewhere between indifference and schadenfreude. After the December 2012 shooting massacre in Newton, Connecticut put the issue of gun control back into the political discourse, some progressives again dredged up the right's criticism of the ATF in the early 1990s. In one lengthy segment, MSNBC host Rachel Maddow aired old footage from Waco and Ruby Ridge while making some tenuous connections between gun right politicians and activists in Weaver, McVeigh, and Koresh. She referred to a conspiracy-driven corner of the gun world's paranoia about federal agents without paying much heed to the fact that the ATF was inflicting the same sort of abuse on suspected gun offenders that Maddow herself has decried when used against suspected undocumented immigrants or Occupy protesters. Okay, hold on, let me read that again. Some of these people be making these damn sentences too long. I don't know grammatically if that's even, this is long, okay. In one, what'd you say? What? He does about politics. Oh yeah. He's calling Rachel Maddow progressive and on the left. Yeah, I don't know much about Rachel Maddow. Was she more liberal? Yeah. Liberal. Yeah, I can see that. She referred to the corner girl. She referred to a conspiracy-driven corner of the gun world's paranoia about federal agents without paying much heed to the fact that the ATF was inflicting the same sort of abuse on suspected gun offenders that Maddow herself has decried when used against suspected undocumented immigrants or Occupy protesters. I sort of know where he's going with that. I'm sort of lost with that too, though. More tellingly, Maddow added that there's nothing wrong with wanting to give more power to the ATF based only on the politics of the people opposed to doing so. Sometimes the character of the opposition defines why something ought to be the most politically viable thing in the world, she said. What? Who is these? I think he want her to look bad. He must not like Rachel Maddow. Because this is the dumbest shit I ever, excuse my language. This is some of the dumbest stuff I have ever heard in my life. More tellingly, Maddow added that there's nothing wrong with wanting to give more power to the ATF based only on the politics of the people opposed to doing so. Sometimes the character of the opposition defines why something ought to be the most politically viable thing in the world, she said. So for anybody who may not understand it, and I don't want to say understand, I ain't trying to be condescending, but for anybody who may not, that might not translate to, what she is saying is that they should give more power to the ATF simply because conservatives think they should not give more power to the ATF. That is ludicrous. That is ludicrous thinking, and that's like the definition of divide and conquer tactics, and that's not critical thinking. That's completely rudimentary thinking. That's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend thinking, which is childlike thinking. It's thinking beyond that, doesn't involve conceptual. I don't know. That's nuts. He must not like her. He want her to look crazy. Again, we are reading Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balko. We are on page 298. The 2000s, A Whole New War. This is book 6. This is book 6 in our ongoing teaching, but we are on day 7. I see we got a few extra viewers. I'm gonna just do a rundown of what we have read already. I'm trying to make sure. I'm trying to keep us on track. I don't want to throw us off too much. But this is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. We read that the first day. This is The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. We read that the second day. This is They Can't Kill Us All by Wesley Lowery. We read that the third day. This was I'm not going to go into all that, but if you want to know more of them about, go watch another live. This is Asada, an autobiography. We read that the fourth day. This is Locking Up Our Own by James Foreman Jr. We read that the fifth day. This is Rise of the Warrior Cop. We are reading. We started reading that on the sixth day, and we finishing it up. And then this is Until We Reckon, which we will read on the seventh day. And again, what we are doing is we are reading a different book every day. And for this first week, the overall concept is police terrorism and mass incarceration. What we are doing is we are reading them. We're not just trying to arbitrarily read them and just read them to say, hey, look, we read a book every day. Or, hey, look, we read this many books. We are reading them so that way we can take the information that is being given to us in these books and apply it into the things that are going on into the city. We are reading them so that way we can see the things that are being mentioned and talked about in these books and figure and cross-reference how they deal with our day-to-day life and how they are intertwined with the issues that we're facing in Rockford. And so we want to also think about the connection that each of these books have to each other. We didn't want to just be pick books and be reading books that did not build onto each other, that were not cohesive with each other. All of these pieces of literature are very symbiotic with each other. I think some of it may take conversations and dialogue for people to understand, but I think once the conversations and the dialogue opens up and people start to understand some of the language and the rhetoric used in these books, it gets to a place where you can see the broader picture and the fuller picture. Okay, so that's where we at. We're on, for anybody who may be at home reading along, or anybody who may in the future be purchasing these books and then keeping up with what we're saying. We are on page 298 of Rise of the Warrior Cop. But even before Newton, progressives have been advocating for the use of more government force against political factions they find unsavory. In 2009, the Department of Homeland Security issued a controversial report on what the author, DHS analyst Daryl Johnson, called a resurgence of the right-wing extremism and threat it posed to domestic security. The report was widely criticized on the right and was eventually criticized and revoked by DHS Secretary Janet Napolitano. But after a spate of mass killings in the following years by assailants with political views that in some cases could be loosely characterized as right-wing, Johnson became something of a progressive hero. Most of the incidents involved clearly mentally ill attackers whose politics were all over the place. Even Johnson acknowledged that the incident most in line with his thesis, the massacre at the Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, by a white supremacist named Wade Michael Page, was the work of a lone wolf attacker and likely would not have been prevented by the recommendations in his report. Still, he was celebrated on the left. The progressive advocacy group Media Matters declared him vindicated. Similar sentiment popped up on progressive outlets like Think Progress, Salon, Rachel Maddow's MSNBC blog, and Democracy Now! In truth, attacks by groups on the fringes of the right wing have actually dropped in recent years, despite Attacks by groups on the fringes of the right wing have actually dropped in recent years, despite some claims that they've increased in response to the election of a black president. Attacks from the groups on the fringes of the left wing are in decline too, as are alleged attempted terrorist attacks by fringe Muslim groups. In a 2012 interview with the Idaho Spokesman Review, Johnson showed why it may not have been such a great idea for progressives to embrace him simply because he wanted to shut down opinions they found distasteful. Johnson was interviewed for an article on the 20th anniversary of the Ruby Ridge fiasco, and he took one step further Rachel Maddow's idea of supporting government force simply because you don't like the factions opposing it. Johnson, in fact, suggested that merely having concerns about police militarization is a worry only borne by extremists. In fact, he appeared to have suggested that even recognizing that militarization is happening is an indication of fringe extremism. What? It's some people this man do not like. He don't like Rachel Maddow. You wasn't here, bro. He said he did the same shit that Chuck Schumer did. That he did to Chuck Schumer. He made her look nuts with his last sentence. That she sure the fuck is. I'm
offended when he says that she's progressive.
He must not like progressives. He must have an issue with progressives too. Yeah, because he put her in there. Yeah. It seems like he don't like nobody. It seems like this, yeah. What the hell? He set this person right up too. Okay, what is this? Let me read it. I'm sorry. Okay, so I want to read this again. I don't mean to be doing so much comment. Some of the things that all right. So basically this guy is saying that just saying out loud that the police is being militarized is extremism. So let's read this paragraph again. In a 2012 interview with the Idaho Spokesman Review, Johnson showed why it may not have been such a great idea for progressives to embrace him simply because he wanted to shut down opinions they found distasteful. Johnson was interviewed for an article on the 20th anniversary of the Ruby Ridge fiasco, and he took one step further Rachel Maddow's idea of supporting government force simply because you don't like the factions opposing it. Johnson, in fact, suggested that merely having concerns about police militarization is a worry only borne by extremists. In fact, he appeared to have suggested that even recognizing that militarization is happening is an indication of fringe extremism. For American extremists, the siege at Ruby Ridge symbolizes the militarized police state, said Johnson. The U.S. government, through its Department of Homeland Security in particular, he said, has unintentionally fostered and even solidified Orwellian conspiracies concerning an overzealous, oppressive federal government and its perceived willingness to kill to ensure citizen compliance. In the minds of modern-day extremists, Homeland Security has enhanced the lethal capability of many underfunded small-town police forces through its grant programs. Using federal grants, state and local enforcement agencies have been able to buy expensive equipment and training that are commonly associated with the military, he said, adding that extremists view such a security buildup as a continuation of the Ruby Ridge legacy. That legacy is a continuing drumbeat for extremists and white supremacists who recruit with the message of big government versus the little guy and the government set me up. These extremist ideas continue as messages and even recruiting themes among various radical groups in the United States, Johnson said. Oh, okay, I see what he's trying to do. I don't fuck with dude. I attempted to contact Johnson to ask if he'd like to clarify his comments. He didn't return my calls. I knew he didn't like him. I told y'all he did not like this dude. He making him look crazy. Yeah, he ain't returned his calls. He ain't like that he didn't return his calls. He gonna leave that part out. As they stand, these quotes are striking, particularly from someone who once worked for the Department of Homeland Security and now runs a consulting firm that works with law enforcement agencies. They certainly appear to dismiss police militarization, a phenomenon documented by a wide range of media outlets and criticized by interests all across the political spectrum, as merely a fantasy cooked up by extremists to boost their recruiting. Incidentally, The publications and advocacy groups who have recently expressed concerns about police militarization include Think Progress, Wired, Salon, MSNBC, and Democracy Now! All of them also ran articles praising Johnson. Oh, yeah, oh, man, who is this Radley Balko dude, man? Who is Radley? We have to meet Radley, man. He is upset at all people, he don't like the police. But he don't like, but at the same time, he don't like politicians. He don't like journalists. He don't like Democrats. He don't like Republicans. He don't like the left. He don't like the right. He don't like progressives. He had a little statement in there that almost made it seem like he don't like black people when he made it seem like they don't know how to use social media right. This is an interesting guy. So long as partisans are only willing to speak out against aggressive, militarized police tactics when they're used against their own, and are dismissive or even supportive of such tactics when they're used against those whose politics they dislike, it seems unlikely that the country will achieve enough of a political consensus to begin to slow down the trend. Okay, I like how he brought that in there, because that's one of the things that I also agree with. And let's bring this back again to common everyday things. I don't rock with the fact that the police killed that woman on the insurrection, okay? I don't rock with that. I think that shit is fucked up and fucking wrong. I believe that those people had the right to enter into that building. That building is a public space. I agree with their right to organize there and to assemble there. Now, the tactics that they using and the ideology that they have, those people from the insurrection, I don't rock with that. I don't have that. I think that they are dead wrong in that. However, I do stand behind the fact that I don't think the police should be out here killing citizens. I do stand behind the fact that certain things should be de-escalated. I do stand behind the fact that we are tax-paying citizens and that there are certain things that have been written into the fabric of this country that we are supposed to have the right to be able to exercise in doing. So I agree with him when he says that we can't just agree with, I'm not for the police. If it's a big Trump rally tomorrow in Rockford, I ain't for the police pepper spraying them neither. I'm not for the police tasing them, beating them up, or shooting them with rubber bullets neither. That's got to be the difference between us and them, in my opinion. Or that's got to be the difference. That's got to be the difference that the society starts to make and that we start to make consciously. Damn, I got some water somewhere in my mouth. Dry than a motherfucker. Oh, man, I don't know if this is my water. Oh, it's a big thing. Is that? Oh, no, that's flavored water behind me. Oh, yuck. Oh, damn. I'm sorry for whoever brought the flavored water. I don't mean to be offensive. But, I can't fuck with that. Okay, my mouth's just going to have to be dry for right now. It's fucked up. All right, let me get back to reading. My fault, y'all. My fault. We on page 300. We almost at the end of this chapter, and then it's on one chapter after that. Okay, Oh yeah, y'all. We on page. Okay. There you go. Okay, there we go. Shout out Terry. Terry over there investigating, Googling stuff for me. That's what we need. Yeah, if anybody see me, I like that idea. Terry, you got some great ideas. Damn, that's what's up. That lady. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna say. But you got some good ideas. But yeah, you got good ideas. Damn, I lost what I was. Oh yeah. Anybody else too? For people who watching this, or somebody who may watch this video later and then go back and watch more future lives. If you hear me saying something and don't have or wondering something out loud, feel free to Google it and leave it in the comments, please. And let's all go share this live. That's what I need to do. I need to in the midst of doing this every now and then, I just need to say, let's go share this live. So everybody that's watching this, share this live. Even if you watching the old one, go back and share it. WREX TV, 6th Ward winner, Democrat April Prunty defeats Republican Jerry Wells to become the next alderman in the 6th Ward. Okay. Okay. Sharing it, going to share this video. Gotta go over your pages. May 30th Alliance. Oh, there we go. This is me popping up on a live. The volume good? Is the volume good? Damn, I can't even hear it. All right, y'all, my fault. I know I'm getting a little distracted, but I'm just trying to share the live. I also want to make sure the audio good. The audio good? Hold on.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, the audio good. Okay. All right. Do I got this one pinned? I already got this one pinned. Come out tomorrow for the group discussion at 5 o'clock for Until We Reckon. 61 views. Oh, damn, it's only 21 views on there. Gotta get more views. Damn, wait, no, that's an old one. 21 views. What this one got? Oh, I can't see how many views this one got. Damn, my fault. I ain't supposed to be doing this, y'all. My fault, y'all. I'm sharing it. Go share this. Share this to y'all page. Watch and share. That's what you type. Type it for me. Watch and share. There we go. Post. Okay, post it. There we go. Share. Okay, I'm gonna take a picture out here too. I'm not vain. I'm doing this because for engagements. This is something that this is part of the job. This is part of the work, man. I'm not vain taking this picture. Don't judge me. Okay. Oh wait, I should flip it around. Yeah, I'm gonna turn it around this way. Okay. Yeah, like that. Hey, we outside. Hey, we outside. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Now I'm finna post that picture onto social media. Okay, give me 1 second, y'all. Hey. We outside. Oh, it's 60 degrees out here. This is crazy. This is beautiful. Y'all just don't understand it. You was so cold out here. They thought they was going to defeat us with the winter. They tried to defeat us with the winter. They weaponized the white snow. The white supremacy and the white power structure tried to use white snow and white supremacy snow to get us out of here. They tried to use a white winter to get us out of here, and it did not work. We overcame it. Okay. Oh, they got the campaign 2021 going. Everybody real heavy on the campaign. Everybody on their campaign joint. Okay. Yeah. All right, y'all. Damn, that's crazy. Damn, I gotta get off Instagram. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm sorry, y'all. Damn, I'm so sorry. I'm just checking one last thing. I'm so sorry. Damn, that's crazy. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Page 300, Rise of the Warrior Cop. Just as with Bill Clinton, there was hope among progressives that Barack Obama would take a more conciliatory. Just as with Bill Clinton, there was hope among progressives that Barack Obama would take a more conciliatory, less militaristic approach to the drug war. And just as with Bill Clinton, Obama has come up short. According to, so he must not, he ain't had no Trump going on. Police coming by waving. These motherfuckers, man. Why y'all waving, man? Why y'all keep coming by here doing petty shit, like taking our blankets? Motherfuckers took all my blankets. That's why, y'all want to know why I'm reading up all through the night? Because I don't got no blankets to fucking sleep in. So I got to stay up until it's warm, then I can go to sleep again. No, I'm just playing. That's not the truth. I mean, that is the truth. They did take the blankets, and that is a real thought I have had, that it would be easier to sleep during the day without blankets because of the weather. Okay, anyway, sorry. See, they distracted me. I'm getting, okay. According to a tally by Current TV, by the end of his first term, Obama had overseen more federal raids on medical marijuana dispensaries in 4 years than George W. Bush had presided over in 8. Oh, damn. Oh, shit. He don't fuck with Obama. He about to light Obama ass up. He about to light Obama up. Okay, let's go. Obama also stepped up immigration raids and continued the raids on doctors and pain clinics suspected of overprescribing opioids. Ugh. He continued to encourage Mexico's policy, aided by U.S. foreign aid and weapons, of fighting its drug war with the military, despite the horrifying carnage caused by that policy. And as previously discussed, Obama and Democratic leaders in Congress refunded the Burn Grant and COPS program that contributed to the rise in SWAT teams and multi-jurisdictional anti-drug and anti-gang task forces, and at record levels. The 1033 program has also soared to new heights under Obama. In its October 2011 newsletter, which carries the revealing tagline, "From Warfighter to Crime Fighter," the Law Enforcement Support Office, LESO, the agency that oversees the Pentagon giveaways, boasted that the fiscal year 2011 was the most productive in its history, by a lot. FY11 has been a historic year for the program, wrote LESO program manager Craig Barrett. We reutilized more than $500 million, that is million with an M, worth of property in FY11. This passes the previous mark by several $100 million. $500 million in reutilization was a monumental achievement in FY11, but I believe we can exceed that in FY12. The take in 2011 alone was equivalent to up to 18% of the total value of the equipment the program had given away in its history. In fiscal year 2011, the program gave away 800 Humvees, a 700% increase over 2010. In Los Angeles County, the Sheriff's Department put 4 semi-trailers on standby so that as a new piece of desirable war gear became available, the department could be en route to pick it up before another police department could claim it. The investigative journalism site California Watch reported that by 2011, the department was taking in $3 to $4 million worth of military gear annually, including M16 rifles, helicopters, microwaves. How many But some of this stuff is why do they need multiple microwaves? I mean, and I'm sure that's like the least thing I should be worried about. It's just the way that it's thrown in there. It's baffling. Like, how much money they spending on microwaves? Okay. What kind of microwaves is it that he felt the need to insert it into this? Like, look at the things that he say microwave in between. Microwave in between helicopters and survival kits. See, that made me feel like that's not a normal microwave. The investigative journalism site California Watch reported that by 2011, the department was taking in $3 to $4 million worth of military gear annually, including M16 rifles, helicopters, microwaves, survival kits, workout equipment, bayonet knives, and ammunition cans. During the record year for 1033 in the state as a whole, California police agencies raked in over 163,000 total items in 2011 worth over $26 million, from bath mats acquired by the sheriff of Sonoma County to a full-track tank for rural San Joaquin County. Police in San Joaquin County had already purchased a $500,000 armored mobile command center with the DHS grant. California Watch reported that in Rio Dale, a small Humboldt County town with just 4 full-time officers, not including the chief, the police department has used the program to pick up 2 vehicles and 2 M16 rifles. They just want weapons and guns. In Richard County, South California, Sheriff Leon Lott was so pleased with his new acquisition that he posed with it, along with his SWAT team, and then put out a press release. He called it the Peacemaker, explaining in his release that the Bible refers to law enforcement in Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The Peacemaker is an M11 381 armored personnel carrier. The vehicle moves on take-like tracks and features a belt-fed, turreted machine gun that fires 50 caliber rounds. Richland County includes the city of Columbia in its northern suburbs. It's also home to the University of South Carolina. What isn't a battlefield? According to Charles Earl Barnett, a U.S. Marine veteran and retired police major who has served on several United Nations and NATO military and peacekeeping missions, a 50 caliber machine gun is completely inappropriate for domestic police work. It causes mass death and destruction, Barnett told me in 2008. It's indiscriminate. I can't think of a possible scenario where it would be appropriate. Okay, let's get into that. See, again, when we talk about the militarization of the police department and the police force, what we are talking about is there is no fucking reason for them to have these fucking tanks. Why do they have tanks? Think about this. we live in an age where planes and helicopters and cars can get you to places quick as hell, in the speed of light almost. So we can't pose the argument or the thing that, well, they need all of these militarization in all of these different cities in case of some type of foreign invasion or some type of crazy domestic terrorist thing. No, it's not true. It's just not true. It's not true. These things, that tank, the reason that tank is dangerous, in my personal opinion, is I mean, yes, it's because that if that tank is used, it will kill indiscriminately, like he said. Anybody, it will not care who it is hitting at. You are not going to be able to make sure you don't have any casualties of war from that tank. But also, the tank is an issue because of the mindset it's giving these police officers. They're posing in pictures with it. He's using Bible quotes for it. They're naming some of these things. So that right there lets you know the type of mindset that they have. That's the type of mindset that these things are giving them. These toys, these gadgets that they get in, it's inflating their this warrior mindset that they have. And the fact that everybody just sort of praises them as heroes, and we have this blue line thing and this blue lives matter thing. I mean, they've co-opted the American flag. And I'm not even like an American flag guy. They've co-opted the American flag. They were storming the Capitol with it. Beating cops with it. They've co-opted the American flag, and they're killing their own with it. I want black people to think about that. They don't even like Uncle Tom's. The people who went to do the insurrection didn't like the police who's supposed to be on their same side trying to stop them from doing the insurrection. They beat them with their own flag. And look at you doing the same thing, betraying your own people in some instances, out there being police officers and assaulting people at demonstrations when they're out here trying to fight for the liberation of people who look like you and your family members. And that was a sort of a sidebar, but it's just highlighting hypocrisies. Highlighting hypocrisies. When they was out there going to storm that Capitol, it was police officers in the crowd, police supporters in the crowd, and they was beating the police up that didn't know to move out the way. All the black police officers need to start moving out the way. That's what y'all need to start doing. Move. All right, where we at? Oh, yeah. But Richard County isn't the only jurisdiction that can fire off rounds of that size. Sheriff Joe Aprio in Maricopa County, Arizona, also had a gun that shoots .50 caliber ammunition. So does Chattanooga, Tennessee, Anne Arundel County, Maryland, and Cuyahoga County, Ohio. In Bossier Parish, Louisiana, the .50 caliber gun is mounted to an armored vehicle that the sheriff calls his war wagon. I told you they naming these motherfuckers. Excuse my language, man. I'm sorry. I told you they naming these things. Think about that. He's calling it a war wagon. At least after the Sheriff's Department in Faulkner County, Arkansas. At least after the Sheriff's Department in Faulkner County, Arkansas used nearly $12,000 in asset forfeiture funds to purchase a .50 caliber gun. They had the good sense to decide they shouldn't use it. It shoots through buildings. Oh, damn, good looking. It shoots through buildings, Sheriff Carl Burrow told a local newspaper. There's absolutely no legitimate law enforcement use of this rifle. There have been at least, what the hell did he buy it for? What? See, he be trying to set people up. He got a grudge with him too. He want him to look stupid. At least after the Sheriff's Department in Faulkner County, Arkansas, used nearly $12,000 in asset forfeiture funds to purchase a .50 caliber gun, they had the good sense to decide they shouldn't use it. This guy got to be being condescending. Oh, this got to be being condescending. It shoots through buildings, Sheriff Carl Burrow told. It shoots through buildings, Sheriff Carl Bird told a local newspaper. There's absolutely no legitimate law enforcement use of this rifle. He says this after they purchased it. There have been at least a few other voices of sanity. In Massachusetts, Governor Deval Patrick ordered the state's police agencies to stop using the program pending an investigation. After a Boston Globe report found, well, basically what similar investigations all over the country had found. From the Globe. Police in Wellfleet, a community known for stunning beaches and succulent oysters, scored 3 military assault rifles. At Salem State College, where recent police calls have included false fire alarms and a goat roaming the campus, school police got 2 M16s. In West Springfield, police acquired even more powerful weaponry, 2 military-issued M79 grenade launchers. What the hell? I'm not gonna go on a tangent. In June 2012, the Pentagon suspended the entire 1033 program, not because of any concern about the militarization of civilian policing, but because of recent press reports of mismanagement by some of the participating law enforcement agencies. An Arizona Republic investigation has found that the Pinal County Sheriff's Department transferred some of the Pentagon equipment to non-police agencies and was planning to sell some other equipment at auction. A broader AP report found that police departments had kept poor records about their use of the equipment obtained through the program, including high-power weapons that could no longer be accounted for. They sold them. They sold them. Maybe used some too, but they sold them. As of November 2012, however, the program was back up and running. Finally, the Obama administration has continued to defend in court the use of military-like violence to enforce the drug laws. In Avena versus U.S., DEA agents pointed their guns at an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old during a mistaken drug raid. The agents had apparently misidentified the license plate of a suspected drug trafficker for the plate of a car owned by Thomas Avena, the father of the children. The Obama administration argued in federal court that the lawsuit should be dismissed before even being heard by a jury, that the agents' actions were reasonable under the Fourth Amendment. Of course, it's not at all unusual for an administration to defend the actions of federal drug agents. But this was an administration whose drug czar has suggested that perhaps it was time to tone down the battle rhetoric that government officials often use when enforcing the drug laws. He was right about that. But on the front lines, the administration was arguing in court that there's nothing unreasonable about government agents pointing guns at the heads of children whose parents are suspected of drug crimes, and that even when said gun pointing is done in the service of a mistaken raid, the agent should be shielded from any liability. There's always a good... no, he didn't go into a taser bag. Damn, this shit is nuts. I really got to go back and read some more of I got to read this book, man, like from the beginning to end. So I'm coming in it because the manner in which he reading this is okay. It's good. I'm saying it's good. I don't want people to think I'm saying this is bad. I'm dismayed. It's good. And for me, I like that he's breaking down all of these different versions of problems, of 2000 problems, the problems of the 2000s policing. I think maybe everybody's done a good job of documenting it. Okay. I think he's about to get in the taser bag here. I think he's about to get in the taser bag here. There was always a good time to use a taser. There's always a good time to use a taser. So said Andrea, an attractive single mom and one of the 4 stars of the TLC reality show The Police Women of Broward County, which debuted in 2009. In the trailer that included the taser quip, the video then cut to the show stars tackling suspects, slamming knees into kidneys, pointing guns, and generally kicking ass. Judging from the other clips on the TLC website, some of which feature shots of the female officers in bikinis, it seemed that the network couldn't make up its mind whether these women were sex bots with handcuffs or girl cops who were just as rough and tough as the boys. A poster ad campaign for the show only reinforced the identity crisis. One read, "Taser time." Another, "Cavity search." Anyone? What the fuck? Excuse my language. Pop culture has always been a big influence on police culture, sometimes reflecting prevailing sentiment and sometimes driving it. In his chronicle of the 1970s, How We Got Here, conservative pundit David Frum argues that the decade's parade of renegades cops who skirt the law but still abide by a familiar moral code, think Dirty Harry, reflected the prevailing opinion at the time that bad court decisions and criminal coddling procedures were preventing well-meaning cops from getting the bad guys. Now some motherfuckers got out of Dirty Harry. What? He was just nuts. Okay. Even though at one point in time I did like Dirty Harry. I mean, if we talk about movie, it was. All right, anyways. Ed Burns, the former narcotics cop and co-creator of HBO's The Wire, thinks the influence might have been the other way around. In a 2008 interview, Burns said that the Gene Hackman movie, The French Connection, had a big influence on the culture of drug cops. Police out here being influenced by fucking movies. In The French Connection, Detective Popeye Doyle had this very cynical, harsh, rough, law-breaking type of drug style that sort of set the tone in how street narcotics guys work. Very flippant. What the movie didn't pick up and what you didn't see is all the intense surveillance and hard work that would go into a drug bust back then. But they put out the idea of this guy who cracks heads, especially in that scene, they went and shook the bar down. That became iconic. And that is the way cops were afterward. I mean, you see white cops in black neighborhoods looking like Serpico, and they're not undercover. It was just this mindset that took over of how you're supposed to dress and act and the way you're supposed to be. The French Connection, it's worth noting, came out in 1971. The series of botched Odell raids in Collinsville and elsewhere began in 1973. Oh yeah, he don't like cops. He might like be, his ideology might be in different places, but he really just tried to set them up for he make it, damn. He just made this raid. He just applied these raids. Has something to do with a movie. They influence on movies, which I don't doubt or disagree. I think that is a societal issue. Is that the violence in the society permeates into all of us. The French Connection, huh? I've seen pieces of that. Never seen the whole thing. And he brought up Serpico. Okay. In the 1980s, oh yeah, this dude, this is an interesting person. In the 1980s, the TV show Miami Vice nurtured the belief that South Florida. Oh, what'd you say?
I said I knew this was.
In the 1980s, the TV show Miami Vice nurtured the belief that South Florida was teeming with drug lords and armed with more guns than most third world armies, while Hill Street Blues offered the grittiest, most realistic portrayal of a big city police department yet aired on television. The show cast most of its cops in a sympathetic light, but also took on issues like racism, corruption, and brutality. That is what they do. They cast the cops to be sympathetic, and then they try to take on real issues and make it seem like these cops have these complex emotions about these real issues. Whole time, motherfuckers still go to jail. Anyways. For the better part of a generation, the Fox hit Cops was the only reality police show on TV. For 20 years, America watched as patient patrol. For 20 years, America watched as patient patrol officers broke up domestic disputes, arrested sunburned wife beaters, and chased petty drug offenders down darkened alleys. Though the departments depicted in the show always had veto power over the footage that made it on the air, Cops generally did well to depict the monotonies of police work, be it walking a beat, calmly talking down a jealous husband, or driving long, all-night neighborhood patrol in a squad car. It was really the expansion of cable TV in the 1990s and 2000s that blew out the cop reality genre with shows that tended to emphasize confrontation and celebrate a culture of police militarism. A&E broke in first with Dallas SWAT, which sent a camera crew with the city's elite paramilitary police unit to document drug raids and standoffs. Damn, being distracted. Drug raids and standoffs. Yeah. Drug raids and standoffs. The show's success spawned Detroit SWAT and Kansas City SWAT. Court TV then jumped in with Texas SWAT and SWAT USA. Testosterone-infused Spike TV. Oh, yeah, he being ass. Testosterone-infused Spike TV joined the mix in 2008 with DEA. Produced by Jolly Weatherman come drug warrior Al Roker. The first season followed a group of federal agents. Also in Detroit, the city's crumbling badlands provide great backdrop for reality shows as they planned and carried out drug raids. It also produced an unintentionally hilarious moment when self-proclaimed pot smoker and legalization advocate Joe Rogan was forced to conduct a reverent promotional interview with one of the show's drug agent stars while hosting one of Spike's mixed martial arts events. The obvious criticism of such shows is their exploitation and general tackiness. Not that anyone expects much dignity from most of the cable networks, but you think, for example, that the Broward County Sheriff's Department might object to the sexualization of its female officers or to a national ad campaign insinuating that they are sporting itchy taser fingers. But these shows may have a more sinister effect. In emphasizing the more aggressive, confrontational aspect of police work over community service, hurting people instead of helping people, they may be shifting the profile of the typical young person attracted to police work. You think? Browse the dozens of police recruitment videos on YouTube. What? That's a thing. For example, and you'll find that many of them feature images of cops tackling suspects, rappelling out of helicopters, shooting guns, kicking down doors, and sicking dogs on people. The images are often set to blaring guitars or heavy metal music. These are the videos that police departments send to high schools and colleges to attract new recruits. At the very first step in the process of staffing their departments, then, these agencies are deliberately appealing to people who are likely to be lured by the thrill-seeking, adrenaline-producing, butt-kicking aspects of law enforcement. Build an entire police force of people who fit that description, and you have a force of cops who seek confrontation instead of avoiding it and who look to escalate volatile situations instead of resolving them peacefully. These are the sort of cops who volunteer for the SWAT team for the very reasons they should be excluded from it. Cops like the two Maricopa County SWAT officers who taught the CBS News reporter Jim Stewart in 1997. The best part of being on the SWAT team, one of the officers said, was that you get to play a lot of games. You get to play with a lot of guns. That's what's fun. You know, everybody on this team loves guns. The second cop then chimed in, hey, the bottom line is, it's freaking fun, man. That's the deal. Nobody wants to take burglary reports. Even the wrong door raid has become well established in pop culture. The first depiction of one I could find on network television was in a 1990 episode of the NBC drama L.A. Law, but it's become more common in the last decade or so. In one episode of The Simpsons, Chief Wiggum mistakenly raids the home of Reverend Lovejoy in search of a cattle rustler. The shot then pans down the street to show loose cattle grazing in the front yard of Springfield. Yeah, this dude is an asshole, man. Like, this whole thing was just to make cops look like idiots. Like this, I don't know if he subconsciously or consciously did that, but this whole portion, I'm sure when he gave this to an editor, the editor probably told him he could leave this out. I'm happy he did not though. I'm so happy he did. I'm so happy he did it. Okay, The Simpsons. But it's become more common in the last decade or so. In one episode of The Simpsons, Chief Wiggum mistakenly raids the home of Reverend Lovejoy in search of a cattle rustler. The shot then pans down the street to show loose cattle grazing in the front yard of Springfield's well-known career criminal. One particular pointed skit on Comedy Central's Chappelle Show depicted the discrepancy between police raids on white people suspected of white-collar crimes and black people suspected of drug crimes. In the skit, a white CEO was subjected to a drug raid in which the cops set off a flash grenade, shoot the man's dog, sexually assault his wife, and beat him as they yell at him to stop resisting. Coming full circle, in 2009, a viral video posing as an ad for a search engine parodied the SWAT reality shows by following Fresno SWAT as they mistakenly raid a daycare center, a family eating dinner, and an elderly couple. It ends with the statement, imagine if Dispatch gave out as much bad information as search engines do. And so here we are. The wrong door raid has now been normalized to the point where it can be parodied in a viral internet commercial for a search engine. Damn, that shit is crazy. Okay, I mean, That shit is. We got the numbers. The numbers is coming up. I think he's the first person besides Cornel West. Cornel West did this too, where he sort of like incorporates where popular culture and what pop culture is at in not just pop culture, but the culture in general, and how that interrelates to the issues and to the society. And it's that Chappelle Show skit. I remember watching that Chappelle Show skit as a kid and laughing at it, and not really understanding it fully. But to hear him talk about basically the Simpsons, the Chappelle Show, ICO is suspected to a drug raid. I want to read this one more time. So like in this, okay, this is because it's a saying about comedy. I don't know what it is, but it's a saying about there's truth in every joke, or it's honesty in jokes, or it's something about the fact that it's truth in jokes, or honesty is in jokes. Or he's on a drink. Ooh, it is some grapes. It's juicy grapes. Grape juice. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta eat it. Okay. Uh. Anyways, I'm gonna just move on to the numbers. The numbers. Number of drug raids in New York City in 1994, 1,447. In 1997, 2,977. In 2002, 5,117. I hate when people do that shit. I did 1,400, 2,900, and then I did 5,000. I hate when people do. I'm gonna do that again. Number of drug raids in New York City in 1994. 1,447. In 1997, 2,977. In 2002, 5,117. Crazy. Approximate number of raids each year by the Toledo, Ohio SWAT teams as of 2008, 400. That's like 1.3 a day. Basically one a day. Percentage of towns between 25,000 and 50,000 people with the SWAT team in 1984, 25.6%. In 1990, 52.1%. In 2005, 80%. I wonder if Belvedere got a SWAT team. Somebody find that out. Do Belvedere have a SWAT team? Does Loves Park have a SWAT team? That's what we need to find out. We know Rockford got a SWAT team, but that's not in the. We got, but it's 140,000 people here. There's 30,000. There's excuse me. This is with cities with SWAT raids united. Approximate number of SWAT. All right, percentage of towns between 25,000 and 50,000 people with the SWAT team in 1984, 25.6, 1990, 52.1, 2005, 80. So, what's the cities around here with that type of a area of people that have do they have SWAT teams? And just in general, Okay. Approximate number of SWAT raids in the United States in 1995, 30,000. In 2001, 45,000. In 2005, 50,000 to 60,000. Total number of federal agencies employing law enforcement personnel in 1996, 53. In 2008, 73. Total number of federal law enforcement officers as of 1996. Okay, no. 74,500. In 2008, 120,000. Damn. Number of SWAT teams in the FBI alone in 2013, 56. One for every more than, I think, one per. Unlikely federal agencies that have used SWAT teams. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Consumer Product Safety Commission, National Aeronautics and Space. NASA, what the fuck? What the fuck is NASA using a SWAT team for? Okay. Department of Education. What the okay, tell me this is okay, this is a Department of Health and Human Services, US National Park Service, Food and Drug Administration. Value of surplus military gear serviced by Johnston, Rhode Island from the Pentagon in 2010 to 2011. $4.1 million. Population of Johnston, Rhode Island in 2010. 28,769. Partial list of equipment given to the Johnston Police Department. 30 M16 rifles, 599 M16 magazines containing about 18,000 rounds, a sniper targeting calculator, 44 bayonets, 12 Humvees, and 23 snowblowers. Okay, y'all. What time is it? Where we at? It's 3:36. Belvedere. Okay, so we just had somebody shoot me. Somebody just told me some information. Belvedere has SWAT. The Belvedere Police Department has a SWAT team. So that's what I mean about us understanding where we fit in some of these issues. And so we sometimes we have to drag it out to further than excuse me, y'all. And I'm about to eat some fruit snacks. I'm sorry, y'all. And we have to drag it out further than just to Rockford. We also want to bring it to Winnebago County, and we are still a part of a county. So Belvedere has a SWAT team. So that just goes to show you the extent of these issues, how far gone some of these things are. Belvedere has a SWAT team. All right. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to eat the fruit snacks. I got to eat some more. I'm sorry. Belvedere got a SWAT team. Rochelle. Rochelle got a SWAT team. Yep. But that's telling. Okay. So, we are getting ready to start the last chapter of Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balko, who is very condescending. But I like it. I like the manner he's being condescending in. There's been commonalities with the books that we've read before, and sure there be commonalities with some of the things we're going to read in the future. There's been things that are connected to issues that we are dealing with here in Rockford. There's been things in here in which them being posed to me have questioned what some of these things look like in Rockford. I wonder if it's a way for us, maybe we can talk to Ari about this. Look up dog killings, to look up animal killings, police killings in those news articles. That dog killing, the puppy side piece of that chapter was very interesting. The celebrity ride-alongs, very interesting. Very interesting. Shaq, what the hell are you doing, bro?
Got into the protesting.
The protesting that it got into, I thought was very interesting.
Looked up
Mm-hmm.
the Pittsburgh G20 summit was in 2009.
Okay, it was.
So
We were the same one.
about the same.
Okay. I thought that was very interesting. That it's that now it seems that I'd have to look to see 100%, but it seems that it's touched on either protesting or uprisings in every decade, or at least a portion or somehow. At least not every. I shouldn't say every because I haven't went through everyone and read everyone. I know that here we got the table of contents I can see. In Rome, from Rome to Rich, they sort of touched on it a little bit. They didn't really. It wasn't really like protesting or uprising. It was more just like, well, I guess petitioning them. You know, like trying to keep what's the I guess uprising, right?
They were saying that in Rome, the reason why they started having the police is because they were starting to have political
Mm-hmm.
uprisings.
Political uprisings, right. So that was chapter 1 where they spoke on it. Chapter 2, soldiers in the streets, which was like English times and English rule, which I don't know if they really touched on it so much in that soldiers in the streets, but in the following chapter, the quick history of cops in America, they sort of start touching on it happening early on in America, the protestings. And then chapter 4, the 1960s, the 1960s are the 1960s. So I didn't get to read or hear from that chapter, but I would think that they would have to touch on some of the civil rights and protesting in some manner or some sense. The 1970s. When was Watts? Watts was the 60s though, right? 68. So then Watts definitely the 60s. They speak about the uprising, how they handle those uprisings. 70s and 80s. I'm not sure of any notable ones in the 70s or 80s that I can think of offhand. But I do know I wonder in the 90s. I have to go back and ask. I think Ari was one of the reading the ones in the 90s. If they touched on L.A. in 92. They did, yeah, because they talked about how that's why, because Watts, why they had certain things in L.A. and Rodney King. Okay, so then that gives us, in the 90s, it being touched on. And then Chapter 8, the 2000s, they touched on, touching on the same thing, too. I think this is the first thing I've read that has touched on the Occupy movement and the G20 movement and the Seattle protest. That was the WTO, right? I had watched a movie about that when I was younger, and I had never heard about it before, except the movie that I watched. And I remember thinking, like, this happened? Like, I was like, and it's one of the things.
That was like the beginning of the internet.
Really?
Yeah, we still had dial-up.
Okay.
You're watching like WTO protesting and your AOL dial-up.
Really? That sort of was something I had already thought about before. But one of the things Terry said that I thought was interesting when she was reading, she read how, and you've known, I mean, you have a very wide scope of history, but she read about how the judges in the slave act that the freedmen, yeah. They write about how, like, the person who was ruling on the cases got $5 if they kept them as $5 if they kept them as free, and $10 if they pushed them back into slavery. And as she read it, she said, "Oh wow, they don't teach you that in history books." It was either that part, or it was either on that she said it, or on she read about I have to go back and find it, but. In the 20s or 30s, it was after World War I. I sort of talked to you about this already, but it was after World War I, and people in the army and veterans were trying to protesting about not being given the right amount of money or right, benefits or whatever. And the militia was outside, and they shot in the air and then rushed them or whatever. And then I think it was either then she stopped and she said, "Oh, they don't tell you about that in the history books," or the judge thing. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, I get that. That's one of my most common things that I get out here when I'm reading this is, that one would have stuck with me. There's certain things I remember, like tar and feathering stuck with me. When the first time I read about somebody being tar and feathered, never forgot it. Never forgot it. That was the Salem witch trials. Never forgot it. The things that they do touch on in slavery. Never forgot. It's so. I thought that is that has been some of the most interesting things. So it seems here I think this will be the chapter that will be very interesting. This chapter is called Reform, which anybody who's been keeping up with what it is that ideologically that we believe in right out here, or ideologically that anybody who's been keeping up with what ideologically we are striving for, and we are speaking on, and what we feel like is needed for true liberation. It is not reform; it's revolution. But I also do enjoy the concepts that people put forward when they speak about reform, because I do understand that revolution is a long-term goal, And in order to get to that long-term goal, and in order to get people to understand why that long-term goal is achievable and important, that it is going to take, that it is going to be steps, and steps looks like reform and pieces of reform. I think it becomes our job and incumbent upon us to not settle for reform and to not settle for the small things. It wasn't to me the problem with integration was that if that was going to be the thing that black people were going to strive for, we couldn't settle for token integration. We had to get the full thing. That was one of the things one of the speeches that Malcolm X gave that really stuck with me. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying, white people are out here rioting and and blowing up churches and killing civil rights activists over token integration. Imagine what they'd do if y'all started asking for the real thing. And I think that's a very true statement to offer. And that was one of the things that Dr. King came to speak about later on. The idea that some of the things that they were asking for in the beginning didn't cost the nation anything. It didn't cost America anything. America didn't truly have to invest into these people that they had disenfranchised and marginalized. But the things that was going to be needed to start to get to true equity and true liberty and true freedom and true liberation for black people going forward was going to be things that was going to cost the nation something. Reparations cost the nation something. Building equitable education and building equitable employment and building equitable social environments and building equitable health care, those things cost something. And so here we go with chapter 9 of Rise of the Warrior Cop, page 309, Reform. There is no crueler tyranny than that which is perpetuated under the shield of law and in the name of justice. Charles de Montesquieu. Che Calvo only intended to be home long enough to grab a bite to eat and walk his dogs. Calvo worked full-time at an educational foundation in Washington, D.C., but he also had an unusual part-time job. He was mayor of the small town of Berwyn Heights, Maryland. In 2004, at age 33, he was the youngest elected mayor in the history of Prince George's County, Maryland. Now 37, he lived with his wife, Trinity Thompson, her mother, Georgia Porter, and their 2 black Labradors, Peyton and Chase. Calvo was due back in town later that night for a community meeting. As Calvo took the dogs out for a walk the evening of July 29, 2008, his mother-in-law told him that a package had been delivered a few minutes earlier. He figured it was something he had ordered for his garden. On the walk, I noticed a few black SUVs in the garden. I noticed a few black SUVs in the neighborhood, but thought little of it except to wave to the drivers. He would later recall. When Calvo and the dogs returned, he picked up the package, brought it inside, then went upstairs to change for his meeting. The next thing Calvo remembers is the sound of his mother-in-law screaming. He ran to the window and saw heavily armed men clad in black rushing his front door. Next came the explosion. He later learned that this was when the police blew open his front door. Then there was gunfire. Oh, no. Oh. Fuck. Then boots thumping the floor. Then more gunfire. Calvo, still in his boxers, screamed, "I'm upstairs. Please don't shoot." He was instructed to walk downstairs with his hands in the air, the muzzles of 2 guns pointed directly at him. He still didn't know it was the police. He described what happened next at a Cato Institute forum 6 weeks later. At the bottom of the stairs, they bound my hands, pulled me across the living room, and forced me to kneel on the floor in front of my broken door. I thought it was a home invasion. I was fearful that I was about to be executed. I later asked Calvo what might have happened if he'd had a gun in his home for self-defense. His answer, "I'd be dead." In another interview, he would add, "The worst thing I could have done was defend my home." Okay. That gives us back into Louisville territory. He a mayor, and this shit happened to him. And so this is the other thing, too, and I think that it's real crazy how, sometimes certain people are truly were, and Cornel West uses this statement, but prophetical, Martin Luther King Jr. was, in some manners like a prophetical philosopher. the idea that, you know, because it's real easy to be like, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's a very easy thing to say. It look a lot different when a mayor of a city is having SWAT raid his house with guns drawn, and he's admitting that if he had a gun, and that would have been the worst thing that could have happened. That if he tried to defend his home, something that was I would think that in the top, if you had like a top 3 things that the people who are considered the forefathers of this nation had, that they think needed to be upheld as the country continued on, defending their home would have to be top 3. Top 3. And this is a mayor saying that it was best that he did not defend his home. And so these things, again, they started off being things that they were trying to do to people who they were deeming as menaces to societies or threats to society or threats to the public safety. But because they were being allowed to do this with no accountability, with no transparency, with no oversight, and when they made mistakes, nobody reprimanded them or had any consequences for it. It's bled over to a carelessness and to an incompetence. Imagine if pilots was just allowed to just crash planes. Crash plane, just you go back. Nothing happened. He back flying a plane in a week. He flying planes again in a week after he crashed a plane. Everybody on the plane dead. He lived, but he back flying the planes in a week. Think about that. Think about if tomorrow all the surgeons at Swedish American, all their patients die. Tomorrow their patients, they start losing patients left and right. Nothing happening, and so. At first, they might start letting the. All right, I'm not finna get into it, but this is not, all right. Okay. Calvo's mother-in-law was face down on the kitchen floor. The tomato artichoke sauce she was preparing still sitting on the stove. Her first scream came when one of the SWAT officers pointed his gun at her from the other side of the window. The police department would later argue that her scream gave them the authority to enter the home without knocking, announcing themselves, and waiting for someone to let them in. Rather than obeying the SWAT team demands to get down as they rushed in, Georgia Porter simply froze with fear. They pried the spoon from her hand, put a gun to her head, and shoved her to the floor. They asked, "Where are they? Where are they?" She had no idea what they were talking about. She told them to look in the basement. She would later tell the Washington Post, "If somebody puts a gun to your head and asks you a question, you better come up with an answer." Then I shut my eyes. Oh, God, I thought they were going to shoot me next. Oh, fuck. Calvo's dogs, Peyton and Chase, were dead by the time Calvo was escorted to the kitchen. Peyton had been shot in the face almost as soon as the police entered the home. One bullet went all the way through him and lodged in a radiator, missing Porter by only a couple of feet. Chase ran. The cop shot him once from the back, then chased him into the living room and shot him again. This is some sick shit. Calvo was turned around and put on his knees in front of the door the police had just smashed to pieces. He heard the rummaging through his house, tossing drawers, emptying cabinets. Calvo and Porter were held for 4 hours. Calvo asked to see a search warrant. He was told it was en route. The police continued to search the house. At one point, a detective got excited when she found an envelope stuffed with cash. According to Porter, the detective was deflated when she found only $68 inside and noticed that the front of the envelope read, "Yard sale." At one point, Porter overheard a detective call to ask a relative to schedule a veterinary appointment. The sight of the dog's body apparently reminded her that she needed to make an appointment for her own pet. Whoa. I want people to understand, this is what we're doing right now. We are reading Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balko. We are on day 6 of the ongoing teaching at Say Their Name Square. We are outside of City Hall, 425 East State Street. This is part of the occupation that has been going on for the past 180 plus days. On October 2nd in 2020, the Rockford Police Department shot Tyrus Jones while he was unarmed in his back multiple times. The officer who shot him was put back on duty duty within a month, and the shooting was ruled justifiable. We have been out here since that shooting took place. On January 5th, Denzel Duvant was beat and battered by the Rockford Police Department while he was handcuffed. We have stayed out here and continue to bring awareness to that situation. And what we are doing with this ongoing teaching is we are reading a different book every day. Starting at midnight, we begin a different book. Besides today, we begin a different book every day with a different overall concept. The book and the overall theme of this week is police terrorism and mass incarceration. The book we read the first day was the new Jim Crow. The second day was the end of policing. The third day was They Can't Kill Us All. Fourth day was Asada and autobiography. Fifth day was Locking Up Our Own. And now day 6 we began reading Rise of the Warrior Cop. As we are finishing up this book however, though, in day 7. Dude just got his dog. The mayor's dog. It's killed the mayor's dogs. Killed the mayor's dogs, and one of the women police seeing the mayor's dead dogs, then calls her veterinarian and makes an appointment for her dog because the dead dogs reminded her that her dog needed a vet appointment. Okay. Even after they realized they had just mistakenly raided the mayor's house, the officers didn't apologize to Calvo or Porter. Instead, they told Calvo that they were both parties of interest and that they should consider themselves lucky they weren't arrested. Calvo, in particular, they said, was still under suspicion because when armed men blew open his door, killed his dogs, and pointed their guns at him and his mother-in-law, he hadn't responded in a typical manner. They was trying to kill him. Trinity Tomzik came home about an hour later to find a blur of flashing police lights and a crowd gathering on her front lawn. She was told that her husband and mother were fine. Then she was told that her dogs were dead. She broke down in tears. When she was finally able to enter her home, she found her dog's blood all over her house. The police had walked through the 2 large pools of blood that collected under Payton and Chase, then tracked it all over the home. Even once the police realized they had made a mistake, they never offered to clean up the blood, to put the house back together, or to fix the front door. As Calvo and Porter were being interrogated, one of Calvo's own police officers saw the lights and stopped to see what was going on. Berwyn Heights officer Amir Johnson knew this was his mayor's house, but had no idea what the commotion was about because the Prince George's County Police Department hadn't bothered to contact the Berwyn Heights police chief, as they were required to do under a memorandum of understanding between the two agencies. Johnson told the Washington Post that an officer at the scene told him, "The guy in there is crazy. He says he..." Oh, man, these motherfuckers is idiots. Excuse my language. Johnson told the Washington Post that an officer at the scene told him, "The guy in there is crazy. He says he is the mayor of Berwyn Heights." Johnson replied, "That is the mayor of Berwyn Heights." Johnson then called Berwyn Heights Police Chief Patrick Murphy. Eventually, Murphy was put in touch with the supervising officer, Detective Sergeant David Martini. Murphy recounted the conversation to the Post. Martini tells me that when the SWAT team came to the door, the mayor met them at the door, opened it partially, saw who it was, and then tried to slam the door on them, Murphy recalled. And at that point, Martini claimed they had to force entry. The dogs took aggressive stances, and they were shot. If that indeed was what Martini told Murphy, he was either lying or repeating a lie told to him by one of his subordinates. There was never any further mention of Calvo shutting the door. On the SWAT team because it never happened. Calvo later had his dogs autopsied. The trajectories the bullets took through the dogs' bodies weren't consistent with the SWAT team's story. But the lies, obfuscations, and stonewalling were only beginning. The police department would first claim that they had obtained a no-knock warrant for the raid. They then backtracked and blamed Calvo's mother-in-law, arguing that when her scream blew their cover, they were no longer obligated to knock and announce themselves. This was an interesting theory, given that the knock and announce requirement, by definition, would have required them to blow their own cover. Yeah, this guy an asshole, man. He took some time to think about that one. I never thought that's a good. He attacking this. He's really attacking this. This no-knock warrant. He must have had a no-knock warrant served on him one day because he's hitting this from all types of angles regularly. That is an interesting theory that he's right. I'm gonna read that again. I like that. The police department would first claim that they had obtained a no-knock warrant for the raid. They then backtracked and blamed Calvo's mother-in-law, arguing that when her screen blew their cover, they were no longer obligated to knock and announce themselves. This was an interesting theory, given that the knock and announce requirement, by definition, would have required them to blow their own cover. That's the point of the requirement. Major Mark McGaw, commander of the Prince George's County Narcotics Enforcement Division, claimed that the SWAT team couldn't have obtained a no-knock warrant if they had wanted to because the state of Maryland doesn't allow them. This too was false. Damn. The state had passed a bill. So even the people that's like supporting the fact that he disagreeing with the other people for lying, he even saying that they lying. He's real hard on the. It's interesting that he thinks that it's good cops because he's not posing a good argument for being good cops. He's posing a good argument for no good cops in a racist system. This too was false. The state had passed a bill allowing for no-knock warrants in 2005. It's the sort of law that one would think would have a day-to-day impact on the drug unit of a police department that conducts several raids each week. Yet the head narcotics unit in Prince George's County was completely ignorant of it. 3 years later, McGaw would be promoted to Prince George's County Police Chief. Oh yeah, he don't like cops. He don't like these cops. The affidavit for the search warrant was prepared by Detective Sean Scarlatta. It is incredibly thin. In a few paragraphs, Scarlatta relates that he intercepted a FedEx package containing 32 pounds of marijuana at one of the company's warehouses. The package was addressed to Trinity Tosmick at her home address. A police officer disguised as a delivery man then took the package to Calvo's house where it was accepted by Georgia Porter. There was also a one-paragraph description of Calvo's home. That's the only information in the graph description. That's the only information in the warrant specific to Calvo and his family. The remainder of the 6-page affidavit is a cut-and-paste recitation of Scarlatta's training, qualifications, and assumptions he felt he could make based on his experience as a narcotics officer. As Calvo described the warrant in an online chat, it talks about all the stuff a drug trafficker should have. It talks about all the stuff a drug trafficker should have in his or her home, and this says something like, although we know that the police have no evidence of these things, they can be inferred from the very nature of the charge. It is circular reasoning that says because we are suspicious of you, there must be evidence of your guilt. As Calvo described the warrant in an online chat, it talks about all the stuff a drug trafficker should have in his or her home, and it says something like, although we know that the police have no evidence of these things, they can be inferred from the very nature of the charge. It is circular reasoning that says because we are suspicious of you, there must be evidence of your guilt. On August 7th, police arrested a FedEx driver and an accomplice and charged them with various crimes. Okay, I'm done. I was trying not to do sidebars. But that gets us back into mass incarceration, New Jim Crow, where they spoke about how they legalized racism or how the Supreme Court legalized racism in policing, and how they made it where you could stop somebody if one of the reasons were they were black. If also you were going to say something like they were black and they were and their hair was a certain way, or they were black and they were walking too fast when they seen the police, or they were black and they were walking too slow when they seen the police, or maybe they could say they were nervous when they stopped and searched the person or frisked the person, or because they were nervous when they spoke to him, or they would say because they weren't nervous when they spoke to him, or because the person stuttered when they spoke to him, or because the person didn't stutter. And it got to a point where any actions that just doing anything that they deemed suspicious meant that you were guilty of something. Like just being them being suspicious of you doing something made you guilty of doing something, or was, like you said, sufficient enough evidence for you to be treated as you're guilty of doing something. On August 7th, police arrested a FedEx driver and an accomplice and charged them with various crimes related to drug trafficking. Trinity Tosmick was never supposed to receive that package of marijuana. A drug distributor in Arizona had used her address to get the package into the general Prince George's County area, at which point an accomplice working for the delivery company was supposed to intercept it. The police have found several similar packages. Worse, County police knew the scheme was going on and knew some packages had been delivered to residents unbeknownst to the people who lived in them. The Washington Post reported a couple of months later on cases in which innocent people had been arrested. Defense lawyers who practice in the county said authorities appear to arrest and charge anyone who picks up a package containing marijuana without conducting a further investigation. The Post reported. The more I think about that, the angrier I get. Calvo later told Post columnist Mark Fisher, they know this scheme was going on, yet it never occurred to them from the moment they found out about that package that we were anything but drug dealers. Prince George's County Police Chief Melvin Hyde still couldn't bring himself to rule out the Calvos as suspects, telling the Washington Post, from all the indications at the moment, they had an unlikely involvement, but we don't want to draw that definite conclusion at the moment. So he's saying that their unlikely involvement was that the package got dropped off at their house. That's their unlikely involvement. He's taking it further, I've heard of a lot, I was brought up on the idea of if you ride in the car with your friend and your friend go rob the store and he get back in the car, that's what's the word he used? Unlikely involvement. To me, that's unlikely involvement. And even that, you should, we've gotten to a place now where people get charged for the same crime that the person who did, but to me, that's unlikely involvement. Somebody put in even that is not really unlikely involvement either. That's almost you a victim as well. I don't know, but anyways, they are victims. Somebody used them as surrogates for their drugs, as drug mules without their consent. This is not a consensual mule. They were not mules consensually. I don't know. They weren't really mules. Mules is carrying the drugs. The drugs just got put there. Anyways, it was without consent. All right. See, they cannot admit being wrong. It's like a toxic relationship. They just can't admit being wrong. It's so unhealthy for the society that the people that are policing cannot admit wrongdoing. It's so warped. And it's no matter what city, and that's some of the things that some people may say as they going through and reading going through and reading and watching these things, is that these books aren't based in Rockford, or these books aren't based here. These things go to speak about a societal issue. These things go to speak about a mindset. And, police transfer, and they have, like they said, police transfer to different cities. They have these big meetings with different police chiefs. They transfer, share emails, and they get training from similar places. Like the Phoenix Suns and the fucking New York Knicks play in different cities, but basketball-related issues both connect both of those things, so you can learn something about the fucking Phoenix Suns, the way operations run in the Phoenix Suns basketball team, based off of understanding how some of the operations run in the fucking New York Knicks basketball team. So we can understand how some of the mindsets and operations run in the Rockford Police Department based off of some of the mindsets and how things run in Prince George's County Police Department. We had a police chief here who getting ready to retire who got a problem with admitting when he's wrong, or admitting when a mistake has been made. Good riddance. 2 days later, after the raid had made national and international news, the Prince George's County Police Department finally cleared Che Calvo and his family of any wrongdoing. They did it by way of a press release they put out at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday, the time and day of week when bad news is typically buried. It also happened to be the night of the opening ceremonies for the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. Perhaps even more baffling, officials continued to insist that the raid shouldn't have happened. Of course. Perhaps even more baffling, officials continue to insist that the raid shouldn't have happened any other way. Even as they acknowledge that Calvo and his family were innocent in the months and years following the raid, they will repeat again and again that not a single officer did anything wrong and that no one had any reason for remorse. Y'all killed this man, dogs. Oh, that's so... They put Mike Vick in jail for that. Let Mike Vick say he don't got no reason for remorse. All right. Anyways, I mean, I don't rock with him. I'm not saying I support Mike Vick either. Well, I'm not saying I don't support Mike. Oh shit. Fuck. All right. Anyways, perhaps even more baffling, officials continue to insist that the raid shouldn't have happened any other way. Even as they acknowledge that Calvo and his family were innocent, in the months and years following the raid, they would repeat again and again that not a single officer did anything wrong and that no one had any reason for remorse. In 2010, Sheriff Michael Jackson was asked during his campaign for Prince George's County executive if he had any regrets about the raid. His response, quite frankly, we do it again. Oh, wow. Okay. In 2010, Sheriff Michael Jackson was asked during his campaign for Prince George's County executive if he had any regrets about the raid. His response, quite frankly, we do it again. Tonight. Even when Chief Hyde called Calvo to tell him that he had been cleared of any criminal suspicion, Hyde made sure to explicitly tell the mayor that the call should not be interpreted as an apology. The statements from county officials over the next several months were also astoundingly callous. A day after he called Calvo, Hyde told the press that the raiding cops showed restraining compassion and insisted that they should be credited for not arresting Calvo or members of his family. The only incriminating evidence found in the house was the unopened box of marijuana that the deputies themselves had delivered. Months later, Prince George's County Executive Jack Johnson said something even more preposterous. He insisted that once Prince George's County police agencies had cleared themselves, that was the only apology necessary, and in fact that they deserved praise for clearing Calvo's names after nearly killing him. Well, I think in America, that is the apology when we're cleared, Johnson said. What? Listen, that's not for the. I want an apology, ma. No, don't. Not guilty is not an apology. Well, I think in America, that is the apology when we're cleared, Johnson said. At the end of the day, the investigation showed Calvo was not involved, and that's, a pat on the back for everybody involved, I think. On September 8th, about 5 weeks after the raid, Sheriff Jackson's office announced that his internal investigation had cleared his deputies of any wrongdoing. Everything was done according to procedure. Or as Jackson put it, the guys did what they were supposed to do. 9 months later, Jackson's office will conclude another investigation, again clearing his deputies. Neither outcome was surprising given that Jackson had been defending his deputies since the night of the raid. It's probably also worth noting that the father of Detective Sean Scarlata, the officer who initiated the investigation leading to the raid, was on the Internal Affairs team that conducted the investigations. Oh, nepotism. The officials in Prince George's County, 2 of them elected, openly and without reservation stated that they had no problem with the collateral damage done to the Calvo family. It was part of the war against getting high. Which even they had to know is a war that can't be won. Show can't. 420 around the corner. They didn't even, and because they talking about weed in here too. Around the corner. Now look at your ass. What city is it? Prince George County? Now look, Prince George County. Now look. It might not be legal there yet. It might not. It's coming. A whole lot of weed coming to a county near you. Fight the war against getting high. A lot of people getting high coming to a county near you. They didn't even really think it was something to regret or learn from, or to try to avoid in the future. As Calvo himself pointed out on several occasions, this isn't a problem that can be laid at the feet of the police officers who raided his home. This problem can't be fixed by firing the police involved. This is a political problem. It's a policy problem. Yeah, but that's a start, dude. Calvo understood all of this almost immediately. Someone sent him a copy of Overkill. The Rise of Paramilitary Police Raids in America, the paper on police militarization I had written for the Cato Institute 2 years earlier. A policy wonk at heart, Calvo devoured the paper, reading it on his subway rides to and from work. Still traumatized from the raid. Yeah, it's crazy. I got us behind. Still traumatized by. Oh no! Still traumatized by the raid. My fault, y'all. My fault. My fault. I'm just trying to see how many pages I got left in this in the book. Man, I'm gonna have to readjust, warm up. Oh, it's just, let me see. A policy wonk your heart. Cowboy divide the. A policy wonk. Sorry, y'all. My fault. A policy. A policy wonk your heart. Calvo devoured the paper, reading it on his subway rides to and from work. Still traumatized from the raid, his wife didn't like the image on the cover, a close-up of a SWAT officer with his hand on a machine gun. Calvo then began reading up on the case law behind these raids. Within a few weeks, the charismatic, accessible. Within a few weeks, Within a few weeks, the charismatic, accessible small-town mayor had become a compelling advocate for reform. I moderated a forum about the raid at the Cato Institute in September 2008. Damn, they thought they was finna come over here for a second. Happy that they not. Fuck 'em. Excuse my language, y'all. I'm sorry, man. I just gotta keep it a buck. I'm just gotta keep it a buck sometimes, man. Okay. Within a few weeks, the charismatic, accessible small-town mayor had become a compelling advocate for reform. I moderated a forum about the raid at the Cato Institute in September 2008. As Calvo spoke about what he had gone through, and particularly about his dogs and how angry he was that the police tried to blame the dogs for their own deaths, about a fourth of the audience was in tears. He told his story on CNN, the Morning Network talk shows, and the BBC. And to his credit, he recognized that what had specifically happened to him was part of a broader problem of policy, not of individual cops. Okay, that's true. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. The reality is that this happened. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. The reality is that this happens all the time in this country, and disproportionately in Prince George's County, Calvo told CNN. Most of the people to whom it happens don't have the community support and the platform to speak out. So I appreciate you paying attention to our condition. I hope you'll also give attention to those who may not have the same platform and a voice that we have. Oof. As Calvo continued to advocate for reform, he started to hear from other victims of mistaken police rights. As Calvo continued to advocate for reform, he started to hear from other victims of mistaken police raids, both in Prince George's County and around the state of Maryland. Several included the routine, sometimes callous killing of the family dog. Within a week of the raid, for example, Prince George's County's residents Frank and Pam Myers came forward to say that they were too raided by Sheriff's Department deputies. Indeed, that raid the previous November had been covered by some local media. When the couple told the deputies that the address on the warrant was 2 doors down, the police refused to leave. They continued to look around the couple's house for another 45 minutes. Then 2 shots rang out from the backyard. A deputy had gone into the backyard and shot the couple's 5-year-old boxer, Pearl. He claimed that he feared for his life. Pam Myers told a local news station, "I said, you just shot my dog. I just wanted..." Oh, my fault, y'all. Space there. Damn. they really kill this man dogs like this. It's so crazy. He telling people the story and they crying. Damn. They kill somebody else's dog. This is crazy. Damn. I read one where somebody killed a kid, like the same way they killing the dog. They like bust into that house and they served the warrant, got everybody on the ground, and the parent, the dad on the ground, 2 kids on the ground. They served the warrant. Was told the people that there wasn't no kids in the house, but they had only surveilled it for like a couple hours, and then they busted in and like put everybody on the ground at gunpoint, and then like shot the kid with a fucking shotgun laying next to his dad and the other 2 fucking kids on the ground. And even with the fucking dog, this dude just went into the back and just shot the dog. He claimed that he feared for his life. Pam Myers told a local news station, "I said, you just shot my dog. I just wanted to go out and hold her a bit. They wouldn't even let me go out." That made me think about how they wouldn't let, and of course not a much more desperate situation, but how they wouldn't let Tamir Rice's sister, if anybody's seen that video, they wouldn't let Tamir Rice's sister like come to him after they shot him. It's this weird thing they have where like they don't even want like this person to have any kind of comfort in their last moments. Like what could she have done to her holding the dog like wouldn't have done nothing to threaten. They had already realized that she didn't have anything in the house. She was no longer a threat. She wanted to hold the dog. Same thing when they had shot Tamir Rice. At the point in which she was trying to go to her brother, they understood that the gun it wasn't a real gun. The threat had been completely neutralized. The only thing that she was in the threat of doing was giving him some type of human connection in his last moments. And that was something that they didn't want to happen. And to me, that and this is the first time I'm really thinking about it, but that goes into a war mind, like a warrior mindset or a war mindset. When we watch movies about medieval times and how they would kill all the babies and kill all the kids, you just come in there just killing everything. Even thinking about, like, it's like, that's like some, this is sort of an extreme. It's like some Game of Thrones type shit. Like, you just going in killing stuff. Like, it don't matter what you get, just get some type of a kill. Damn, I ain't never played Assassin's Creed, but if it's a video game, yep, because this is some video game type shit. Like, just get a kill. Just get a kill. They just trying to get some type of a kill. Amber James, another Prince George's County resident, also came forward. Police raided her home in May 2007 looking for her sister, who didn't live in the house. According to James, when their search came up empty, they promised to return the next day and to kill James' dog when they did. A series of police raid horror stories from Howard County, Maryland also emerged. Kevin and Lisa Henderson say they were the victims of a mistaken raid in January 2008. At 10 o'clock p.m. the night of January 18th, a raid team opened the family's unlocked front door. Inside were the couple, a 28-year-old house guest, their 2 teenage sons, and their son's friend. The police first met the family dog, a 12-year-old lab Rottweiler mix named Grunt. According to the lawsuit, one officer distracted the dog while another shot it point blank in the head. When one of the couple's sons asked why they had shot the dog, one officer pointed his gun at the boy's head and said, "I'll blow your fucking head off if you keep talking." Imagine being powerless in that situation. You just got to stand there. Did somebody saying something like that to your child or risk not even just your own life? Like, at that point, it's a gun pointed to your child's head. You would risk their life. And it's not as if these are people who, like, maybe you can call their bluff. They've come in killing. They've come in and they've shot the dog. They've killed the dog. They have set a tone. If you do anything, they will kill you. And so this is, and I guess this is the first time I'm really thinking about this in this sense. So I am happy that he sort of brought some of these other things up. But this is literally the exact shit that they were trying to write out. I don't really fuck with I don't fuck with the founding fathers like that. But we can agree on this thing. This was some shit that they was trying to keep out of the country. This is, completely violation of just human rights. This is just a violation of human rights. One of the most basic rights is, the right, to your home, and even the right to bear arms. Like nobody in any of these situations that we are speaking about has the right to bear arms. Nobody has the right to bear arms in any of these situations. The police found marijuana in a jacket pocket of the Henderson's house guest. He was arrested. 4 days later, after Lisa Henderson called to complain about the raid, she and her husband were also arrested for possession of marijuana, even though the police hadn't found any drug anywhere else in the house. 10 months later, a state judge acquitted the couple of all charges. The Hendersons believed that the police intended to raid a different house in the neighborhood that looked a lot like their own. A subsequent raid on that house turned up marijuana, scales, and cash. Incompetency. Okay, so that's this. Okay. Karen Thomas, also a resident of Howard County, told a Maryland State Senate hearing in 2009 that police shot and killed her dog during a mistaken raid on her home in January 2007. Even after they had surrounded her in her bedroom, she said they still hadn't yet identified themselves, and she thought the gunshots had been directed at her son. In my mind, terrorists had just killed my son and they were going to kill me next. Boyd Pettit told the same committee, our collective lives flashed before our eyes during a mistaken raid on him and his family in April 2008. Mike Hansey, his wife, and their 12-year-old daughter were subjected to a nighttime raid when police received a tip that Hansel's stepson and a friend might have stolen items from a police car, including a rifle and ammunition. They also raided the home where the stepson actually lived, as well as the friend's home. They found none of the stolen items and made no arrest. Hassany and his wife Phyllis told the Baltimore Sun that they were still reeling from the trauma. They had their guns drawn. Angel and I were screaming, Phyllis Hassany said. They had their black-on-black uniforms. All you could see were their eyeballs. Hassany added that the police had done a bit more had the police done a bit more investigating, they would have found that neither of us are violent criminals. We don't have criminal records at all. Armed with these incidents, Calvo went to the Maryland legislature to push for reform. The bill he proposed was modest. It required every police agency in Maryland with a SWAT team to issue a quarterly report, later amended to twice yearly, on how many times the team deployed, for what purpose, and whether any shots were fired during the raid. It was a simple transparency bill. It put no limits or restrictions on how often or under what circumstances SWAT teams could be used. Yet it was the only bill of its kind in the country, and it was opposed by every police organization in the state. One Maryland lawmaker attempted to amend the bill to prohibit the use of SWAT teams in cases involving One Maryland lawmaker attempted to amend the bill to prohibit the use of SWAT teams in cases involving known misdemeanors, a seemingly reasonable restriction. That measure was rejected after more lobbying from police groups. But the main bill passed the Maryland House in March 2009 by a vote of 126 to 9. Let's see. Sorry, y'all. My fault. I'm just looking through some things real quick. Okay, so armed with restrictions. Okay, but the main bill passed the Maryland House in March 2009 by a vote of 126 to 9, and the state Senate in April by a vote of 46 to 0. It was signed into law by Governor Martin O'Malley. Calvo sent the media a response to the legislation. Although the botched raid of my home and killing of our dogs, Peyton and Chase, have received considerable attention in the media, it is important to underscore that this bill is about much more than an isolated, high-profile mistake. It is about a growing and troubling trend where law enforcement agencies are using SWAT teams are using SWAT teams to perform ordinary police work. Prince George's County Police acknowledged deploying SWAT teams between 400 and 700 a year, 100 times a year. That's twice a day. And other counties in the state have said, oh, my fault, y'all. And other counties in the state have said that they also deploy their special tactics units hundreds of times a year. The hearings on these bills have brought to light numerous botched and ill-advised raids in Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Carroll, Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's counties that have also had devastating effects on the lives of innocent people and undermine faith in law enforcement. Although I applaud lawmakers for passing this bill over the objections of law enforcement, I was disappointed that state law enforcement groups decided to oppose this measure rather than embrace it as an opportunity to restore public trust. I remain especially concerned with the arguments put forward that only law enforcement should police itself and that it is somehow inappropriate for elected leaders to legislate oversight and accountability. I cannot disagree with this argument more. As elected officials, we must take full responsibility for the law enforcement departments that we fund and authorize, and we must hold our law enforcement officials to the highest standards and ideals. By the following spring, the Maryland Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention released the first batch of statistics. They were predictably unsettling. For the last half of 2009, SWAT teams were deployed 804 times in the state of Maryland, or about 4.5 times a day. Fuck. In Prince George's County alone, which has about 850,000 residents, a SWAT team was deployed about once a day. According to analysis by the Baltimore Sun, 94% of the state SWAT deployments were to serve search or arrest warrants, leaving just 6% that were raids involving barricades, bank robberies, hostage takings, and other emergency situations. Half of Prince George's County SWAT deployments were for what were called misdemeanors and non-serious felonies. Okay, so that gets us back into this this idea that this weaponry is being used because they have to, or these tactics are being used because they have to match force, or they have to match the tactics being used by the criminals, or the quote unquote criminals. This goes right against that argument. And so again, they're saying that these are non-violent things that they're going and serving these warrants on. These are non-violent misdemeanors. They're saying some of these were served on misdemeanor crimes. Dang, why is this tripping like this? I'm sorry, y'all. I'm tweaking. Must be a cord. Okay. Anyways, my fault. I also don't like how much fucking boo-hooing going on over these damn dogs. I'm not against dogs. I love dogs. I love animals. But this man got a damn bill passed for the dogs. He couldn't even, what about the people? He talking about it ain't just all right. Anyways, I want it to be known too. I'm for dogs. The puppy side gotta stop. Yeah. That was it. Oh boy. He was arrested 4 days later. Scales of cash. A series of police red horror stories from Howard County and Sons. Okay. Found marijuana 10 months later. A Star Jersey. Karen Thomas. Oh yeah, it's online. It's streaming live. Karen Thomas, also a resident of Howard County, told Maryland State Senate hearing in 2009 that police shot and killed her dog during a mistaken raid on her home in January 2007. Even after they had surrounded her in her bedroom, she said they still hadn't yet identified themselves. Oh, wait, no, okay. By the following spring, the Maryland Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention released the first batch of statistics. They were predictably unsettling. For the last half of 2009, SWAT teams were deployed 804 times in the state of Maryland, or about 4.5 times a day. In Prince George's County alone, which has about 850,000 residents, a SWAT team was deployed about once a day, according to an analysis by the Baltimore Sun. 94% of the state SWAT deployments were to serve search or arrest warrants, leaving just 6% that were raids involving barricades, bank robberies, hostage takings, and other emergency situations. Half of Prince George's County SWAT deployments were for what were called misdemeanors and non-serious felonies. More than 100 times over a 6-month period, Prince George's County, Prince George's County sent police barreling into private homes for non-serious, non-violent crimes. Calvo pointed out that the first set of figures confirming what he and others concerned about these tactics have suspected. SWAT teams are being deployed too often as the default way to serve search warrants, not as a last resort. In January 2011, Calvo settled his lawsuit with Prince George's County. Although the details haven't been made public, we know that it involved a substantial sum of money as well as reforms to the way Prince George's County uses its SWAT teams, the types of cases in which the teams are deployed, and better training in dealing with the pets they encounter in raids, as well as treating them more humanely. How do we return to a more robust embrace of the Castle Doctrine, the Fourth Amendment, and an unbreachable divide between the police and the military? I say that like, was it title? That's a question. Overcoming a trend that has extended across 2, possibly 3 generations sounds like an impossibly difficult task. And indeed, some of the people interviewed for this book are skeptical that it can be done. Donald Santarelli, the now regretful father of the... Oh, man. They killed his son. Donald Santarelli, the now regretful father of the no-knock raid, says, I don't think it's possible to roll any of this back now. It would take serious leadership, probably from nobody less than the president. It would take a huge scandal, which doesn't seem likely. But we're not given to revolutionary act. But we're not get. Okay. Wait a minute. He's finna get into a different bag. Okay, let's see what kind of bag he finna get into. All right, let me see what he's talking about. Let's see what he's talking about. Okay. How do we embrace robust? Okay. I don't think it's possible to roll any of this back now. It would take serious leadership, probably from nobody less than the president. It would take a huge scandal, which doesn't seem likely, but we're not given to revolutionary action in this country. Each generation is a little more removed from the deep-seated concerns about liberty of the generation before. We just don't seem to value privacy and freedom anymore. Damn, man, he done lost all hope. I ain't gonna lie, man. If some shit like that happened, I would have lost all hope, too. I can't, they kick in my house and kill my kid in front of me, like, that's gonna be the end of my hope and my belief.
I don't need that much.
I mean, you're older than me, so I gotta hold on to something to keep fighting. Yeah, you looking good. Damn, man, they killed his son. This is a statement that's important.
What book is that?
This is Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balko.
Oh, this is good science fiction. Plus, it's got
It's nonfiction.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
That kind of shit's kind of
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very interesting statement. That it's interesting that they put that line in there. That's interesting. Okay. And we at City Hall. City Hall, 425 East State Street. Okay. Che.
I'm going down and get some cans.
Okay, be safe.
Oh, hey, I'm always safe.
All right. Che Calvo's example shows that change is possible, even though much more of it is in order. Despite falling crime rates and even after the public outrage and media scrutiny engendered by the Calvo raid and other high-profile incidents, the number of SWAT raids continue to rise. Still, even if the will to bend the arc of police militarization doesn't currently exist, there are some policy reforms that would at least improve the current state of affairs. And particularly, the concerned officers and public officials interviewed for this book have suggested a number of possible reforms, some abstract, some concrete, some within reach, and some that, at least at the moment, seem unattainable. Man, he really trying to. God, man, this shit is crazy. We almost at the end of this. My fault, yo. I got it. Damn, they so sour. The grapes so sour. I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta do it. I'm sorry. Try not to eat it in y'all ear. Okay. All right. Let's do it. His first reform that he's putting forward. The drug war. To begin at the least likely end of the spectrum, the best reform to scale back the overly militarized, dangerously civil liberties averse style of policing that prevails in this country would be to end the drug war altogether. I don't know, that's a reform. I like that. Okay. Complete legislation is, of course, never going to happen. But even something short of legalization, complete legalization is, of course, never going to happen. But even something short of legalization, like decriminalization, would remove many of the reasons why we're fighting the drug war as if it were an actual war. President Obama's drug czar, Gil Kirkolakowski, at least seemed to understand the value of rhetoric when he made a point in 2010 of stating that he didn't think it was appropriate to use the phrase drug war. Unfortunately, he didn't change any of the actual tactics used to enforce the federal drug laws. As indicated earlier, the raids, grants, and giveaways of Pentagon gear have all only increased since Obama took office. But just ending the federal drug war and the federal incentives toward militarization would help. SWAT teams will probably continue to exist, and at least in the short term will find other probably equally objectionable missions. But ending the federal drug war could begin to unwind the violent paramilitary task force and the us versus them black and white drug war mentality. If the federal government were to end the burn grants, cut off federal funding tied to drug enforcement, end the Pentagon giveaway program, and get rid of federal equitable sharing program that lets local police departments get around state asset forfeiture laws and make drug warring more lucrative and therefore a higher priority, we see more of these tactical teams begin to disband because of the expense of maintaining them. We'd almost certainly see the multi-jurisdictional task forces start to dry up, so they're often funded exclusively through the federal grants and forfeiture. Those tactical teams that remained would no longer be incentivized to go on drug raids. Perhaps some still would, but without the money to lure them, it seems likely that the expense of deploying them would persuade police departments to reserve them for the sorts of missions for which they were originally intended. At the very least, the federal government should respect the states that have already expressed a desire to ease up on the drug war and stop sending in heavily armed battles to raid medical marijuana. Damn, lost my spot. Okay. At the very least, the federal government should respect that states that. At the very least, the federal government should respect the states that have already expressed a desire to ease up on the drug war and stop sending in heavily armed battle teams to raid medical marijuana dispensaries and growers who are licensed and regulated under state law. Oh, well, I want to say this too before because we coming towards the end of the book. That shit about Obama raiding more dispensaries than in 4 years than Bush did in 8 years is crazy. I'm sure that part of that probably is because it was more dispensaries in those in his time. But it started narratives about Obama that in these. It started narratives that Obama that before I began to read some of these books, before I began to listen to some of these people speak and some of these speeches and read some of these essays, that I had never really realized. One of them is that the amount of people that the Obama administration was deporting, that he was doing it at such a high rate that he was nicknamed the deporter in chief. That's a fact you don't hear a lot. And then the same thing about the dispensary raids that they brought up about Obama, how he had how many dispensary raids he had. That was under his administration. And of course, I'm not sitting here acting like I think Obama was in charge of every dispensary raid or every deportation. But as the you at the top. The person that's at the top got to take responsibility for it. You the face of the administration, so it's gonna land on you. And so, as they talk about dispensary raids right there, that made me think about Obama sending people in to raid dispensaries. I bet never see him smoking no damn weed. All right. Okay. Okay. Legislatures or city councils could also pass laws restricting the use of SWAT teams to those limited, rare emergencies in which there is an imminent threat to public safety. They could prohibit the use of no-knock raids or even forced entry to serve warrants on people suspected of violent crimes. Failing that, policymakers could simply put more restrictions on search warrants. For example, they could prohibit the use of dynamic entry tactics for any warrant obtained with only the word of an informant. The records of informants should be made available to defense attorneys and attorneys in civil suits with the stipulation that any identifying information be redacted. Informants' records could simply be a set of numbers and indicating their success rate. Ending any of the federal drug war policies that set all of this in motion would be a step in the right direction. Halt the mission creep. There is no need for regulatory agencies at any level to be conducting SWAT raids. The Department of Education and the Food and Drug Administration don't need to be conducting SWAT-like raids. SWAT teams shouldn't be raiding American Legion halls to break up charity poker games. They shouldn't be raiding any poker games, nor should they be used to confront Tibetan monks who have overstayed their visas or sent to storm the offices of doctors suspecting of overprescribing painkillers. And the idea of SWAT teams enforcing underage drinking laws, performing occupational licensing inspections, or checking that beer bottles are adequately labeled ought to be so self-evidently preposterous as to be laughable. It is. I've laughed a lot at the right things though. Their heavily armed assault forces are sent to perform such tasks as ought to shock the conscience. That heavily armed assault forces are sent to perform such tasks ought to shock the conscience. The people making these kinds of decisions should lose their jobs. More broadly, the amount of force the government uses to enforce a given law should be based on a reasonable assessment of the threat posed by the person suspected of committing the crime, not by what sort of message the government wants to send about how seriously it takes whatever crime it happens to be enforcing. And that brings us to... I'm sorry, it's another fruit snack. They just too flame. But that brings us to another concept that we've talked about before, and that's this get tough on crime mentality, this tough on crime concept that politicians feel that they can't win without. That, to me, it's one of the reasons that Obama came forward over last year and was talking about why people shouldn't use the term defunding the police. It's why Donald Trump at the debates was like, trying to bait Joe Biden into saying he believed in law and order. He tried to man, my fault, I got to eat these fruit snacks. I'm sorry. So, I'm just saying that has been a common theme has been this idea that being tough on crime is the way to get elected, or being tough on crime is the way to rise up the ranks, or the being tough on crime is the being on the right side of history, which there's been no proof of. I wonder where that. Damn. I guess nobody really. I guess it probably is kind of bad connotations. Like, it do sound soft on crime. It do sound kind of weird. Oh, you soft on crime. The word. I don't know, but that has been a commonality, is this idea that people want to be machismo when it comes to crime. And so, all right, Okay.
is a dog whistle for black people.
Yes, yes, and that is law and order and crime and criminals and even just drug dealers and and selling drugs. Like these are all things that are, as Terry just said, dog whistles for black people and brown people and poor people, to different extents, But specifically, this has been something that has been black people have been tied to any type of criminal activity. As far back as crime has been known to be an issue in America, they have tried to tie that, crime into black people, whether through doing it through propaganda in the media or through the fact that they've allowed crime to perpetuate in black neighborhoods more than they have allowed it to perpetuate in other neighborhoods, and also that they've arrested black people for crimes more vigorously than they have arrested white people for crimes, which is another. It's so many ironic things when you start thinking about it. Black communities and black people, when they faced white terrorism and domestic terrorism, got less. White people were not being when white people were killing black people indiscriminately. They were not being prosecuted for killing them indiscriminately. It was a known thing that they would not go to jail for it. That no crimes would be, nothing would be solved for it. They spoke about in locking up our own how also sometimes when black people would commit crimes against other black people, it would also be something that police departments didn't, care about and that they didn't worry about it. Even today, that is a thing that is true. But also on top of that, somehow they are arresting still putting a bunch of black people in prison. So as they're saying that, we're going to allow drugs to be in the neighborhood, they're also going to arrest a bunch of people for selling drugs in the neighborhood. As they're saying that they're going to try to, as they're telling you that they're going to arrest vigorously people for gun crimes, they're still doing things to allow gun crimes to happen in the neighborhood. And so these hypocrisies, and it's the same, and this idea that these things would work, that extra arrest and that no-knock warrants and that, for the people who would have felt that these things will work, I think we have to do a better job of not falling into the traps of looking at these issues as if they never presented themselves before. I can understand if in the 1940s or 50s, people thought more police or more jails or more laws would work. But after a generation has seen that it doesn't work, you cannot then address it the same way. The definition of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting different results. And we're past bordering on insanity. We've jumped the shark on insanity. And so, all right. Che Calvo's bill in Maryland is a good start toward getting transparency. Okay, the next part is called transparency. Che Calvo's bill in Maryland is a good start toward getting transparency. Other states should duplicate it, but there are other policies that will make police departments more transparent and less isolated and detached from their communities. The remarkable advances in and democratization of smartphone technology have enabled. Hey, D. This guy. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. That guy. Che Calvo's bill in Maryland is a good. Oh, no. We're not gonna read all that shit over. Legislators should pass laws that not only clearly establish the citizens' right to record on-duty cops, but provide an enforcement mechanism so that citizens wrongly and legally arrested have a course of action. As even many police officials have pointed out, such policies not only expose police misconduct, leading to improvements, but can also provide exonerating evidence in cases where police officers have been wrongfully accused. All forced entry police raids should be. But if y'all getting wrongfully accused, you're right. I hope that. Where's the martyr cops at? Okay. Anyways, all forced entry police raids should be recorded in a tamper-proof format, and the video should be made available to the public through a simple open records request. See, I like this. He talking some good shit towards the end of some of these things. I don't like that he titling it reform, just sort of But I get what he's saying. Okay. All forced entry police raids should be recorded in a tamper-proof format, and the video should be made available to the public through a simple open records request. If the political will to do so existed, this could be done efficiently and inexpensively. Even better, equip the officers participating in a raid with cameras mounted on their helmets, jackets, or guns. Not only would recording all raids help clear up disputes about how long police waited after knocking, whether police knocked it all or who fired first, but the knowledge that every raid would be recorded would also encourage best practices among the SWAT teams. Additionally, recording raids would probably provide an accurate portrayal of how drug laws are actually enforced. It's likely that many Americans aren't fully aware just how violent these tactics can be. Perhaps many would still support tactical raids for drug warrants even after being exposed to video of actual drug raids, but if the drug war is being waged to protect the public should be able to see exactly how the war is being waged. Police departments should track warrants from the time they're obtained to the time they're executed in a database that's accessible to civilian review boards, defense attorneys, judges, and in some cases, the media, acknowledging that the identities of confidential informants need not be revealed. Botched raids should be documented, including warrants served on the wrong address, warrants based on bad tips from informants, and/or warrants that resulted in the death of an injury of an officer, a suspect, or a bystander. Police departments should also keep running tabs of how many warrants are executed with no-knock entry versus knock-and-announce entry, how many required a forced entry, how many required the deployment of a SWAT team or other paramilitary unit, and how many uses diversionary devices like flashbang grenades. They should also make records of what these raids turned up. If these tactics are going to be used against the public at the very least deserves to know how often they're used, why they're used, how often things go wrong, and what sort of results the tactics are getting. Local police departments that receive federal funding should also be required to keep records on and report incidents of officer shootings and the use of excessive force to an independent federal agency such as the National Institute for Justice or the Office of the Inspector General. We also need an easy-to-find, public, accessible records of judges and search warrants and where applicable prosecutors. The public deserves to know if all the narcotics cops in a given area go to the same judge or magistrate with their narcotics warrants, or if a given judge hasn't declined a warrant in 20 years. As more and more courts use computer software to process warrants, it will get easier to compile this sort of information and make it available to the public. Community policing. Police departments and policymakers should embrace real community policing. That doesn't mean sending off millions of dollars in federal grants that merely say community policing on the envelope. Nor does it mean calling the deployment of SWAT teams to clear out entire neighborhoods community policing, because such actions involve both police and a community. My fault, y'all. My fault, y'all. Oh, shit. One second, y'all. I'm gonna pop back. I gotta do something. Social media, man. Social media demands it. Social media demands it. I'm sorry, y'all. One second. One second. Oh my goodness. One second. Yeah, my fault, y'all. My fault, y'all. One second. I'm finna finish it. I gotta. Social media demands it. Okay. My fault, y'all. My fault, y'all. I just had to do something on social media, man. You know, I got to keep the social medias going. Full-time job. All right, we at 5:01. I'm gonna holler at you, man. Be easy out here. Be safe.
I'll be back.
All right, man. We gonna see you. We gonna get this shared. Let's get this shared real quick. Yeah, watch and share. Make sure, if you're watching this, go ahead and share this on your page real quick. Share this on your Facebook page if you're watching it. That's what we're doing right now. We just sharing it. You gotta keep sharing it. We want people waking up in the morning. We want them to see it. Watch and share. Okay. All right. We're back. Community policing. Instead, it means taking cops out of patrol cars to walk beats and become a part of the communities they serve. It means ditching statistics-driven policing, which encourages the sorts of petty arrest of low-level offenders and of use of informants that foment anger and distrust. The emphasis on statistics in the war on drugs is really what encourages the Fourth Amendment cheating, says Stephen Downing, the former deputy chief at the LAPD. Everyone wants to be successful at what they do. Police officers are no different. But we have this drug war, and in order to get the goods, the grants and such, which earn you good reviews and promotions, you have to meet your quotas. So you want to get in before the drugs are flushed down the toilet. So you lie about what goes on at the door. You take shortcuts to get your warrant before the drugs are moved. It's the bad policy that forces that to happen. The big shots will say to the public, we have all these rules and we enforce them. There are no quotas. But then internally they'll say, why do you only have 2 arrests this month? It's a system that creates cheaters. The quota system just doesn't work without cheating. Changing police culture. Changing a culture sounds like a tall order, and it probably is. I think there are 2 critical components to policing that cops today have forgotten, says the former Maryland cop Neil Franklin. Number 1, you've signed on to a dangerous job. That means you've agreed to a certain amount of risk. You don't get to stop stepping on others' rights to minimize the risk you agreed to take on. And number 2, your first priority is not to protect yourself. It's to protect those you've sworn to protect. But I don't know how you get police officers today to value those principles again. The us and everybody else sentiment is strong today. It's very, very difficult to change a culture. But high-ranking police officials and the policymakers who oversee them can start by simply not perpetuating the problem. Consider those recruitment videos discussed previously. Think back to high school or college and consider among your classmates who would have been excited by that sort of video. Not this dude is an asshole. He taking it back. He's taking shots at people he went to high school with. He talking about a specific person he know. That was crazy. That came out of nowhere. Now think about who among your classmates would have been attracted to a video depicting cops walking a beat, attending meetings of a neighborhood group, or learning the skills necessary to de-escalate a potentially dangerous situation instead of shooting the problem away. These are 2 very different personality types. I like this guy, man. 2 different personality types. It's really about a lack of imagination and a lack of creativity, says Norm Stamper. When your answer to every problem is more force, it shows that you haven't been taught and trained to consider other options. The thing is, when law enforcement officials face suspects who present a genuine threat to officer safety, they do tend to be more creative. When the FBI finally located Whitey Bulger in 2010, after searching for him for 16 years, the reputed mobster was suspected in nearly 20 murders and was thought to be armed with a huge arsenal of weapons. Of all the people who might meet the criteria for arrest by a SWAT team, you'd think Bulger would be at the top of the list. He was also aging in poor physical health and looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. If ever there was a candidate to go out in a blaze of cop-killing glory, it was Whitey Bulger. And yet, instead of sending a tactical team in to tear down Bulger's door, the FBI did some investigating and learned that Bulger went in a public storage locker. They called him up, pretending to be from the company that owned the facility, and told Bulger someone might have broken into his locker. When he went to the facility to investigate, he was arrested. All right, let's see. Yet instead of sending a tactical team in to tear down Whitey Bulger's door, caught him up. Okay, my fault, y'all. Why can't investigators handle common drug offenders the same way? A big reason is a lack of resources. If your department is serving several drug warrants a day, you just aren't going to have the personnel to come up with that sort of plan for each one. A second reason is that drug offenders simply aren't all that likely to shoot at cops, and it's easier to use violent tactics against people who aren't going to fire back. It's by no means a universal rule, but often when police do face a genuinely violent suspect, like an escaped fugitive with a violent history, a suspect in a series of violent crimes, Police today are also given too little training in counseling and dispute resolution. And what little training they do get in the academy is quickly blotted out by what they learn on the street in the first few months of the job. When you're given an excess of training in the use of force but little in using psychology, body language, and other non-coercive means of resolving a conflict, you'll naturally gravitate toward force. I think about the notion of command presence, Stamper says. When you as a police officer show up to a chaotic or threatening or dangerous situation, no, I'm not saying that is wrong. Yeah. No. Training use of force. I think about the notion of command presence, Stamper says. When you as a police officer show up at a chaotic or threatening or dangerous situation, you need to demonstrate your command presence, that you are the person in command of this situation. You do this with your bearing, your body, language, and your voice. What I see today is that well-disciplined notion of command presence has been shattered. Cops today think you show command presence by yelling and screaming all day. If you screamed by yelling and screaming, in my opinion, all day if you scream, you're just going. shit.
I think
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's the sign.
Yeah, that's it. All right. 327. Ugh.
We're ending this live.
Ending it. Ugh.